The crystal chandelier cast dancing shadows across the marble floor as CEO Cassandra Drake raised the golden spoon to her lips until a desperate shout shattered the elegant symphony. "Stop! Don't eat that dessert!" In that frozen moment, as security guards lunged toward the gray uniformed janitor who dared interrupt the city's most powerful woman, nobody could have imagined how a single father's terrified warning would expose a deadly conspiracy reaching into the highest echelons of corporate power. Stay with me as I share this incredible story that proves sometimes the most invisible people see everything that matters. And hey, drop a comment below, letting me know which city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel across the globe. The grand ballroom of the Meridian Hotel gleamed like a jewel box that November evening, its vaulted ceilings adorned with frescoes that had witnessed a century of high society gatherings. Crystal chandeliers scattered light across the assembled elite of the business world, their designer gowns and tailored tuxedos creating a sea of calculated elegance. The annual Drake Industries Charity Gala had drawn everyone who mattered in the corporate landscape: venture capitalists with portfolios worth billions, tech moguls who shaped the digital future, and old money aristocrats whose names graced hospital wings and university libraries. At the center of it all stood Cassandra Drake, a vision of controlled power in her midnight blue Valentino gown that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Her raven hair was swept into an architectural chignon that exposed the elegant line of her neck adorned with a single strand of black pearls that had once belonged to her grandmother, the woman who'd built Drake Industries from a small textile operation into a multinational empire. Cassandra had inherited more than jewelry. She'd inherited an iron will and a talent for reading people that made her one of the most formidable CEOs in the country at just 38 years old. "Another triumph, Cassandra," murmured Senator William Hartley, raising his champagne flute in her direction. His wife, dripping in diamonds that caught the light with every gesture, nodded her agreement. "The Children's Hospital will benefit tremendously from tonight's proceeds." Cassandra's smile was practiced perfection, revealing nothing of her thoughts. "That's the goal, Senator. Drake Industries has always believed in giving back to the community that supported our growth." Her voice carried the kind of quiet authority that made boardrooms fall silent and competitors reassess their strategies. The evening had proceeded with clockwork precision. The 7-course meal prepared by a Michelin-starred chef flown in specifically for the event had been a symphony of flavors that drew appreciative murmurs from even the most jaded palates. The auction had exceeded all projections, with a week at Cassandra's private island in the Maldives fetching a record-breaking $2 million. Now, as the orchestra transitioned into a gentle waltz, servers in crisp white uniforms circulated with the evening's final course, a dessert that had been kept secret until this moment. "Ladies and gentlemen," announced the head chef, Auguste Beaumont, his French accent adding gravitas to the moment. "Tonight's finale is my newest creation, Honey Glazed Paradise, featuring acacia honey sourced from the remote mountains of Nepal, combined with Madagascar vanilla and gold leaf. Each serving costs more than most people's monthly salary, but tonight it is my gift to you." The room erupted in polite applause as the servers presented the desserts with theatrical flourish. Each plate was a work of art, a delicate sphere of spun sugar containing layers of mousse and cream glistening with the amber glaze that caught the light like liquid gold. The aroma that wafted from the plates was intoxicating, a blend of floral sweetness and exotic spices that promised an unforgettable experience. Cassandra accepted her plate with a gracious nod, though her mind was elsewhere. Adrian Cross, her vice president of operations, had been acting strangely all evening, too attentive, too eager to ensure she enjoyed every aspect of the gala. Her instincts, honed by years of navigating corporate betrayals, whispered warnings she couldn't quite articulate. Still, she maintained her composure, lifting the golden spoon that accompanied the dessert. "A toast!" Adrian called out, raising his champagne glass. His smile was too wide, his eyes too bright. "To Cassandra Drake, whose vision has guided Drake Industries to unprecedented heights. May she savor every moment of her success." The room raised their glasses in unison, a chorus of crystal chiming against crystal. Cassandra acknowledged the toast with a slight incline of her head, then turned her attention to the dessert. The spoon broke through the sugar shell with a satisfying crack, revealing the creamy interior. She brought it to her lips, aware that dozens of eyes were watching, waiting for her reaction to validate their own enjoyment. That's when chaos erupted. "Stop, for the love of God, don't eat that!" The voice cut through the orchestral music and polite conversation like a knife through silk. Every head in the ballroom turned toward the source, a man in a janitor's gray uniform standing near the service entrance, his face contorted with desperate urgency. His name tag read Daniel, and his hands were raised as if he could physically stop Cassandra from across the room. For a heartbeat, time seemed to freeze. The spoon hovered millimeters from Cassandra's lips. The orchestra's bows hung suspended over strings. Conversations died mid-syllable, then, like a dam-breaking motion, returned with violent intensity. "Security!" Adrian's voice cracked like a whip. "Get him out of here immediately!" Two guards materialized from the shadows, their black suits making them look like corporate ninjas as they moved toward Daniel with practiced efficiency. But Daniel wasn't backing down. He pushed past a startled server, sending a tray of champagne glasses crashing to the floor in an explosion of crystal and golden liquid. "Please, Miss Drake, you have to listen to me." Daniel's voice was raw with desperation as he dodged the first security guard's grasp. "The glaze, it has acacia oil in it. I can smell it from here. It's concentrated, hidden under the other flavors, but it's there." Cassandra's hand remained frozen, the spoon still poised at her lips. Something in the man's voice, not aggression but genuine terror, made her hesitate. But before she could respond, the guards had reached Daniel. One grabbed his arms, wrenching them behind his back, while the other moved to block any further approach toward the CEO. "I'm sorry for the disturbance, Miss Drake," the head of security, Marcus Stone, said smoothly as his team subdued Daniel. "We'll handle this immediately." "You don't understand." Daniel struggled against the guard's grip, his gray uniform tearing at the shoulder. "My wife died from acacia exposure. I know that smell. I'll never forget it. Please just have it tested, please." The crowd had formed a circle now, some recording with their phones, despite the event's no photography policy. Whispers rippled through the assembled guests like wind through wheat. Cassandra could feel their eyes on her, waiting to see how she would handle this unprecedented breach of decorum. Adrian stepped forward, his face a mask of concern and indignation. "This is absolutely unacceptable. Cassandra, I'm so sorry. This man clearly has some sort of mental health issue. We'll make sure he gets the help he needs after he's removed from the premises." "He's just a janitor," someone in the crowd muttered loud enough to be heard. "Probably drunk." "Or looking for a lawsuit," another voice added with cynical certainty. Daniel's eyes found Cassandra's across the chaos, and in them she saw not madness but desperate sincerity. "I have a daughter," he said, his voice breaking. "She has the same allergy. I've spent years learning to detect it to protect her. That dessert will kill you if you eat it. I stake my life on it." Cassandra slowly lowered the spoon, her movement deliberate and controlled. The room seemed to hold its breath. She studied Daniel's face, the premature lines around his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights, the calluses on his hands visible even from a distance, the wedding ring he still wore despite mentioning his wife's death. This wasn't a man seeking attention or money. This was a father who had recognized danger. "Let him go," she said quietly, but her voice carried the authority that had cowed hostile board members and aggressive competitors. "Cassandra, you can't be serious," Adrian protested, his carefully maintained composure showing its first crack. "This man has disrupted a charity event, destroyed property, and made wild accusations about our catered food. He needs to be arrested." "I said let him go." Cassandra's tone brooked no argument. The security guards looked to Marcus, who looked to Cassandra, then slowly released their grip on Daniel. Daniel straightened his torn uniform with as much dignity as he could muster. "Thank you for listening, Miss Drake. I know how this looks, but you're fired," Cassandra interrupted, her voice returning to its usual Arctic professionalism. "Effective immediately. Security will escort you out and you'll receive your final paycheck by mail. You are never to enter Drake Industries property again." The words hit Daniel like physical blows. His shoulders sagged, and for a moment the fight went out of him entirely. "I was just trying to save your life," he said quietly. "And I'm sure you believe that," Cassandra replied, though something flickered in her eyes, doubt perhaps, or a recognition she wasn't ready to acknowledge. But your beliefs don't give you the right to create panic at a charity event. These people donated millions tonight for sick children. Your outburst has tainted that generosity. She turned to address the room at large, her composure fully restored. I apologize for the disruption, everyone. Please enjoy your desserts. They're absolutely safe. Chef Beaumont's reputation speaks for itself. To prove her point, she lifted the spoon again, but this time something made her pause. It was subtle, a scent beneath the honey and vanilla. Something medicinal and wrong. Her grandmother had been allergic to acacia. She remembered the smell from childhood when they'd had to be careful about which honey to buy, which soaps to use. The memory was faint, decades old, but Daniel's desperate warning had awakened it. Without anyone noticing, she set the spoon down on the plate, the dessert untouched. "Marcus," she said to her security chief, "please escort Mr. Merrick." Daniel supplied his voice hollow. "Daniel Merrick. Escort Mr. Merrick out, quietly. And Marcus," she leaned in speaking so only he could hear, "have the dessert tested, discreetly. I want the results on my desk by morning." Marcus nodded, his expression revealing nothing as he guided Daniel toward the exit. The crowd parted to let them pass, some with sympathy, most with disdain. Daniel walked with his head high despite everything, pausing only once to look back at Cassandra. "Check your office emails from 3 months ago," he said loud enough for her to hear. "I sent you a message about my daughter Lily, about the medical bills. You never responded, but I didn't hold it against you. I still don't. I just couldn't watch another person die from something preventable." Then he was gone, swallowed by the service corridor that led to the loading dock and the cold November night beyond. The orchestra resumed playing, servers hurried to clean up the broken glass, and conversations gradually returned to normal volume. But Cassandra noticed that several guests quietly set aside their desserts uneaten. She also noticed Adrian watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Disappointment, perhaps? Or calculation? "You handled that well," he said, moving closer to her. "Though I think you were too lenient. He should have been arrested." "Perhaps," Cassandra replied non-committally. She picked up her champagne glass, using it as a prop to avoid his searching gaze. "Tell me, Adrian, who changed the dessert order. I thought we were serving the chocolate soufflé." Adrian's pause was microscopic, but Cassandra caught it. "Chef Beaumont suggested the change this afternoon. He said the acacia honey was a rare opportunity. His supplier had just received a shipment. I approved it. Was that wrong?" "Not at all," Cassandra lied smoothly. "It's exquisite, though I think I'll save mine for later. The dinner was quite filling." She signaled to a server who discreetly removed her untouched plate. Adrian's eyes followed the plate's departure with an intensity that confirmed her growing suspicions. Something was very wrong here, and it went far beyond a janitor's desperate warning. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of forced smiles and hollow conversations. Cassandra played her part perfectly, the unflappable CEO who had handled a minor disruption with grace. But her mind was racing, connecting dots she'd been too busy to see before. Adrian's recent interest in her personal schedule, the unexpected resignation of her previous security detail, the new chef who'd been hired without her direct approval. As the evening wound down and guests began their elaborate goodbyes, Cassandra found herself standing on the balcony overlooking the city. The lights spread out below her like a circuit board, each building a component in the vast machine of commerce she'd helped build. Somewhere out there, Daniel Merrick was making his way home to his daughter jobless because he'd tried to save a stranger's life. "Miss Drake." Marcus appeared at her elbow, his expression grave. "I've had the preliminary test done. A friend at the university chemistry department owed me a favor. And the janitor was right. The acacia concentration in that glaze was off the charts. If you have even a mild sensitivity to it, that dessert would have caused severe anaphylactic shock. Without immediate medical intervention." He didn't need to finish. Cassandra's hand tightened on the balcony railing until her knuckles went white. Someone had tried to kill her tonight, and if not for a janitor's desperate intervention, they might have succeeded. "Find out everything you can about Daniel Merrick," she ordered. "His background, his daughter's medical condition, his financials, everything. And Marcus, do it quietly. I don't want Adrian or anyone else to know we're investigating." "Understood. And Mr. Cross," Cassandra turned to look back into the ballroom where Adrian was charming a group of investors, his smile brilliant and false as costume jewelry. Watch him carefully and pull the security footage from tonight, all of it. I want to see who had access to that dessert before it was served. Marcus nodded and disappeared back into the crowd. Cassandra remained on the balcony, her mind already strategizing. Someone had just declared war on her using weapons she'd never expected, allergens hidden in honey assassination disguised as dessert. They'd underestimated her clearly, but they'd also underestimated the power of unexpected allies. Daniel Merrick. She turned the name over in her mind like a puzzle piece she couldn't quite place. A janitor who'd risked everything to save her life, who'd mentioned his daughter and medical bills and an unanswered email. In her world of calculated relationships and strategic alliances, genuine selflessness was so rare she'd almost failed to recognize it. The wind picked up, sending a chill through her designer gown. Somewhere in the city, Daniel was probably tucking his daughter into bed, trying to figure out how he'd pay rent without a job. He'd saved her life, and she'd fired him for it, necessary for appearances, but cruel nonetheless. "Miss Drake?" Her assistant Jennifer appeared in the doorway. "Your car is ready whenever you are." "Thank you, Jennifer. One more thing, pull all the employment files for the janitorial staff at Drake Industries. I want them on my desk first thing Monday morning." Jennifer didn't question the unusual request. After 5 years working for Cassandra, she'd learned that every seemingly random directive was part of a larger strategy. "Of course. Anything else?" "Yes. Find out which pharmacy fills prescriptions for a child named Lily Merrick. Authorize payment for any outstanding medical bills under the Drake Industries Charitable Fund. List it as an anonymous donation. I'll handle it immediately." As Jennifer departed, Cassandra took one last look at the glittering cityscape. Someone had tried to kill her tonight, and they'd very nearly succeeded. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd assumed the invisible people didn't matter, that a janitor would simply clean up after the elite without seeing or caring what happened to them. Tomorrow she would begin unraveling this conspiracy. She would find out who wanted her dead and why. But tonight she had a different priority. Tonight, she needed to find Daniel Merrick and understand why a man she'd never noticed before had been willing to sacrifice everything to save her. The valet brought her Ferrari around the engine, purring like a predatory cat. Cassandra slipped behind the wheel, her mind already mapping the route to the address Marcus had texted her, a rundown apartment building in the industrial district where Daniel Merrick lived with his daughter. It wasn't the sort of neighborhood where Ferraris typically appeared, but then again, nothing about this night had been typical. As she drove through the empty streets, Cassandra thought about the moment when Daniel's eyes had met hers across the chaotic ballroom. There had been no calculation there, no agenda, just desperate concern for another human being's life. When was the last time someone had looked at her and seen a person worth saving rather than a net worth to exploit or a ladder to climb? The answer was uncomfortable in its clarity. Not since her grandmother had died 10 years ago. The apartment building was worse than she'd imagined. Graffiti covered the lower walls and several windows were boarded up. The security door hung off its hinges and the lobby smelled of mildew and neglect. Cassandra climbed the stairs to the 4th floor, her designer heels clicking against concrete worn smooth by decades of tired feet. She could hear a television through the thin walls, a child's laughter from somewhere above, and the distant sound of sirens, the symphony of survival in a place the city had forgotten. Daniel's apartment was 4B, the numbers barely visible on the scarred door. She raised her hand to knock, then hesitated. What was she doing here? What could she possibly say to make this right? She'd fired him for saving her life. She'd chosen appearances over justice, protocol over gratitude. The anonymous medical payment felt hollow, now standing in this hallway that spoke of daily struggles she'd never had to face. Through the door she heard voices. Daniel's deep baritone and a child's higher pitch. They were singing together something about tomorrow being better than today. The melody was simple, but the harmony they created was beautiful in its imperfection, full of love and hope despite everything. Cassandra knocked. The singing stopped. Footsteps approached, and the door opened as far as the chain would allow. Daniel's face appeared in the gap, his expression cycling through surprise, confusion, and wariness in the span of seconds. "Miss Drake." His voice was hoarse, probably from the shouting earlier. What are you doing here?" We need to talk, Cassandra said simply. About tonight, about the dessert, about who wanted me dead. Daniel's eyes widened. He glanced back into the apartment, then undid the chain and opened the door fully. He'd changed out of his torn uniform into jeans and a faded Yankees t-shirt. Behind him, Cassandra could see a small but meticulously clean living room. A young girl, maybe 7 or 8, sat on a patched couch with a coloring book. "Lily," Daniel said softly, "go to your room for a bit. Okay, Daddy needs to talk to someone." The girl looked up, and Cassandra saw Daniel's eyes replicated in miniature, the same warm brown, the same depth of feeling. "Is everything okay, Daddy? Did you find a new job already?" "We'll see, sweetheart. Go on now." Lily gathered her coloring supplies, pausing to stare at Cassandra with frank curiosity. "You're pretty," she announced. "Are you a princess?" "No," Cassandra said, surprised to find herself smiling genuinely for the first time all evening. "Just a woman who owes your father an apology." Lily seemed to consider this, then nodded as if it made perfect sense and disappeared down the short hallway. Daniel watched her go with an expression of such fierce love that it made Cassandra's chest tight with an emotion she couldn't name. "You had the dessert tested," Daniel said. "It wasn't a question. Preliminary results confirm what you suspected. High concentration of acacia oil enough to trigger severe anaphylaxis in anyone with even mild sensitivity." Daniel's hand gripped the doorframe. "Then someone really did try to kill me." "Yes." Cassandra met his gaze steadily. "And you saved my life. Despite knowing it would cost you your job, despite the public humiliation, you saved me. Why?" Daniel was quiet for a long moment, then stepped aside to let her in. The apartment was small but clean, every surface carefully maintained despite the building's decay. Photos covered one wall, Daniel, with a beautiful woman who must have been his wife Lily as a baby family, moments frozen in time before tragedy struck. "Would you like some coffee?" Daniel asked. "It's just instant, but—" "That would be nice," Cassandra interrupted, surprising herself. She couldn't remember the last time she'd had instant coffee. As Daniel busied himself in the kitchenette, he began to talk. "Sarah, my wife, died 3 years ago. We were at a friend's wedding, beautiful outdoor ceremony. No one knew about her allergy because she'd never had a reaction before. Turns out acacia allergies can develop suddenly in adulthood. The wedding arch was decorated with acacia flowers. She walked under it, inhaled the pollen, and within minutes—" His voice broke. He gripped the counter, his shoulders rigid with remembered pain. "She died in my arms while we waited for the ambulance. Lily was 4. She had to watch her mother die because of something as stupid as flower arrangements." He turned, handing Cassandra a mug of coffee that was surprisingly good despite being instant. "After that, I became obsessed with learning about allergens, especially acacia. I studied everything: the smell, the various forms it could take, how it could be hidden in foods and products. When Lily tested positive for the same allergy last year, that knowledge became even more critical." "The email you mentioned," Cassandra said slowly. 3 months ago." Daniel nodded. "Lily needed special medication, and our insurance wouldn't cover it. I wrote to you through the Employee Assistance Program explaining the situation. I know you probably never saw it. You must get thousands of emails. I wasn't angry when you didn't respond. You're running a massive company. One janitor's problems aren't exactly a priority." Cassandra set down her mug, shame washing over her in waves. She had staff to filter her emails to handle minor employee issues. How many other Daniel Merricks had reached out for help only to be ignored by the system she'd created? But tonight, when I saw you about to eat that dessert, when I smelled that familiar scent. Daniel continued, "I didn't see Cassandra Drake, the CEO. I saw a person about to die the same way Sarah did. I couldn't let it happen again. I couldn't stand by and do nothing. Even knowing it would cost you everything." "What's a job compared to a life?" Daniel asked simply. "Besides, I've been broke before. I'll figure it out. I always do." Cassandra studied him, this man who lived in a rundown apartment, who made instant coffee and sang with his daughter, who had sacrificed his livelihood without hesitation to save someone who'd never even noticed he existed. "The person who tried to kill me tonight," she said carefully, "they're still out there. They'll try again. And now you're a loose end. You knew about the acacia. You prevented their plan. You and Lily could be in danger. Daniel's face paled. You think they'd come after us? I don't know, but I can't take that risk. Cassandra made a decision that would have shocked her board of directors. I'm offering you a job. Not as a janitor, as my personal security consultant. You'll work directly with my security team, specifically focusing on poison and allergen detection. The salary would be substantial, and it would include full medical coverage for Lily plus a safe place to live. Daniel stared at her. You're serious? I need someone I can trust, someone who sees what others miss. Tonight proved you're that person. Plus, she admitted, I owe you a debt I can never fully repay. Let me at least try. Before Daniel could respond, Lily appeared in the hallway, clutching a stuffed rabbit that had seen better days. Daddy, I had a bad dream. Daniel immediately went to her, scooping her up with practiced ease. It's okay, sweetheart. Just a dream. Lily noticed Cassandra over her father's shoulder. Is the pretty lady staying? She looks sad. I should go, Cassandra said, standing. The domestic intimacy of the moment felt like an intrusion. Wait, Daniel said. He set Lily down gently. Sweetheart, why don't you show Miss Drake your drawings while I make you some warm milk? Lily brightened, immediately running to fetch a folder from the coffee table. I draw butterflies, she announced, presenting the folder to Cassandra with ceremony. Daddy says Mommy loved butterflies. Cassandra found herself sitting back down, looking through page after page of colorful butterflies, each one labeled with a different emotion. Happy, scared, missing Mommy, brave. The last one caught her attention. It was larger than the others, painted in bold purples and gold. That's my daddy butterfly, Lily explained. He's brave because he takes care of me even when he's sad. Cassandra felt something crack inside her chest, some wall she'd built around her heart after her grandmother's death. This little girl who'd lost her mother, this man who'd lost his wife, and yet they'd created this small world of love and beauty in a rundown apartment while she lived in a penthouse surrounded by luxury and loneliness. Your daddy is very brave, she agreed. He saved my life tonight. Lily nodded solemnly. He's a hero. He just doesn't know it yet. Daniel returned with the warm milk, and Cassandra watched him tuck Lily back into bed, smoothing her hair and whispering reassurances until her breathing evened out in sleep. When he returned to the living room, his expression was resolved. I'll take the job, he said quietly, but not for the money. I'll take it because whoever tried to hurt you tonight, they're the kind of person who doesn't care about collateral damage. They would have let other people eat that dessert too. How many others at that gala might have had acacia sensitivity? This isn't just about you, Miss Drake. It's about stopping someone who sees people as expendable. Cassandra extended her hand and Daniel shook it. His grip was firm, calloused from years of manual labor, but gentle too, the hand of someone who knew both hard work and tender care. There's one more thing, she said. My head of security pulled the employment records. You've been with Drake Industries for 5 years. Perfect attendance until your wife died. Then you used exactly the bereavement days allowed and came back. No complaints. No incidents consistently rated as excellent by your supervisors. Yet you're still making minimum wage. Daniel shrugged. That's how it works for people like me. Not anymore, Cassandra said firmly. We're going to change that. But first we need to find out who wants me dead and why. Are you ready for that? Daniel glanced toward his daughter's room, then back at Cassandra. I've already lost someone I love to something unexpected and preventable. I won't let it happen again. So yes, I'm ready. As Cassandra left the apartment building and walked back to her Ferrari, she felt the weight of the evening settling on her shoulders. Someone in her inner circle had tried to kill her. They'd counted on her routines, her trust, her assumption of safety in her own domain. But they hadn't counted on Daniel Merrick, the invisible janitor who saw everything. She drove through the empty streets, her mind already working through the possibilities. Adrian was the obvious suspect. His behavior tonight had been off his insistence that she eat the dessert, suspicious in retrospect. But was he working alone? Who else had access to the menu changes? Who would benefit from her death? Her phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Surveillance footage shows Adrian Cross meeting with Chef Beaumont privately this afternoon. Beaumont left immediately after dessert service, didn't stay for cleanup. Want me to track him down? She voice texted back. Yes, but carefully. And increase security on Daniel Merrick and his daughter immediately, discreetly. The city lights blurred past as she drove, each one representing lives being lived, stories, unfolding struggles and triumphs she'd never know about. How many Daniel Merricks were out there invisible to people like her, yet holding the fabric of society together with their quiet dedication? Her phone rang. It was her lawyer, Stephen Chen, which was unusual for this late hour. "Cassandra, I just heard about the incident at the gala. Are you all right?" "Fine, Stephen. How did you hear about it so quickly?" There was a pause. "Adrian called me. He wanted to know about the legal ramifications of firing that janitor, whether there might be wrongful termination issues. He seemed very concerned about potential lawsuits." Cassandra's grip tightened on the steering wheel. "Did he now? Tell me, Stephen, has Adrian asked about anything else recently? Anything about my will or the company's succession plan?" Another pause, longer this time. "Actually, yes. Last month, he asked about the protocols if something were to happen to you. He said he wanted to ensure business continuity. I thought it was just due diligence, but now Now it looks like premeditation," Cassandra finished. "Stephen, I need you to pull all the documents Adrian has accessed in the last 6 months, and I need to know if there have been any unusual changes to insurance policies or beneficiary designations. Cassandra, if you seriously suspect Adrian of attempted murder—" "I suspect everyone until proven otherwise," she interrupted. "Except for the janitor who saved my life. He's the only person I trust right now." After ending the call, Cassandra found herself driving not to her penthouse but to Drake Industries headquarters. The building rose into the night sky like a glass and steel monument to ambition. She badged in through the executive entrance, the security guard barely glancing up from his magazine. Her office occupied the entire top floor with windows offering a 360-degree view of the city. She stood at those windows, now looking down at the ant-like cars below, thinking about how isolated success had made her. When had she stopped seeing the people who cleaned her office, who served her food, who made her world function smoothly? Her computer chimed with an encrypted email from Marcus. She opened the attachment, surveillance footage from the gala, enhanced and annotated. There was Adrian slipping an envelope to Chef Beaumont. There was Beaumont adding something to the dessert glaze when he thought no one was watching. And there in the corner of the frame was Daniel Merrick, pausing in his cleaning to watch the exchange with a frown. He'd seen it all. He'd known something was wrong even before smelling the acacia. Yet he'd waited until the last possible moment to act, probably hoping he was wrong, knowing what speaking up would cost him. Another email arrived, this one from her CFO, Janet Williams. "Cassandra, I noticed some unusual activity in the accounts. Adrian authorized several large transfers to offshore accounts over the past quarter, all just under the threshold requiring your approval. Want me to dig deeper?" The pieces were falling into place, painting a picture of corporate betrayal that went beyond a simple assassination attempt. Adrian wasn't just trying to kill her, he was positioning himself to take over the company, possibly embezzling funds to finance his coup. But why now? What had triggered this move? Her desk phone rang, the private line only a handful of people knew about. The caller ID showed a blocked number. "Hello, Cassandra." The voice was electronically distorted, impossible to identify. "I hear you had an eventful evening. Who is this?" "Someone who's been watching Adrian Cross for a long time. He's not working alone, you know. The conspiracy goes deeper than you imagine. If you have information, give it to me. Otherwise, stop wasting my time. Check your father's old files. The ones from the Singapore project. Adrian wasn't the only one who lost money when that deal fell through. Some people have very long memories and very deep pockets." The line went dead. Cassandra stared at the phone, her mind racing. The Singapore project had been one of her first major decisions as CEO, shutting down a development deal her father had initiated because she'd discovered it involved bribes and potential money laundering. Several executives had been fired, their reputations ruined. Adrian had been a junior executive then, but he'd survived the purge by claiming ignorance. What if he hadn't been ignorant? What if he'd been part of it all along? Biding his time, waiting for revenge. She pulled up the old files, password protected and buried in archived folders. As she read through them, a chill ran down her spine. There were names she recognized, people who were now in positions of power both within Drake Industries and in competitor companies. Adrian's name appeared multiple times, always tangentially, never quite enough to implicate him directly. Her phone buzzed with a text from Daniel. "Lily's asleep. Been thinking about tonight." There was a man at the gala, silver hair scar on his left hand. "He was watching you during the dessert service. Seemed disappointed when I stopped you. Do you know him?" Cassandra's blood ran cold. The description matched perfectly. Richard Vance, a former board member her father had trusted, one of the casualties of the Singapore project shutdown. He'd disappeared after being indicted, but the charges had been dropped due to lack of evidence. If he was back, if he was working with Adrian. She texted back, "That's Richard Vance. Very dangerous. Pack what you need. Security will move you and Lily to a safe house tonight." His response was immediate. "We're not running. If they're coming after you, they'll come after anyone who helped you. Better to face them together than hide separately." Before she could argue, her office door opened. She spun around expecting Adrian, or worse, but it was Daniel himself, dressed in dark clothes that made him almost invisible against the nighttime backdrop. "How did you get up here?" she demanded. "Janitor's badge still works," he said simply. "They never deactivate them properly. Security didn't even look up when I walked by. That's your first vulnerability right there." He moved into the office with surprising grace for such a large man, checking corners and shadows like someone with military training. "You were in the service," Cassandra said. It wasn't a question. "Marines. 2 tours in Afghanistan before Lily was born. Came back, got married, thought I was done with danger." His smile was bitter. Funny how life works out. "This isn't your fight, Daniel. You've done enough. With respect, Miss Drake, you're wrong." He moved to the window, studying the city below. "My wife died because someone was careless with flowers. That was an accident, tragic, but unintentional. What happened tonight was deliberate. Someone wanted to murder you and didn't care who else might get hurt. That makes it everyone's fight." Before Cassandra could respond, the elevator chimed. They both tensed, but it was Marcus Stone entering with 2 other security guards. "Miss Drake, we've located Chef Beaumont. He's at a private airport trying to board a flight to Thailand. Should we detain him?" "Legally or otherwise?" Cassandra asked. Marcus's expression didn't change. "Whichever you prefer." "Legally. But make sure he doesn't get on that plane." She turned to Daniel. "You said you noticed things others miss. What else did you see tonight?" Daniel pulled out a small notebook, the kind Cassandra had seen him carry while working. "I keep track of things. Habit from the Marines: always observe, always record. Tonight Adrian met with 3 people privately during the gala. Richard Vance, like I mentioned. Also Margaret Chen from the board. She seemed upset about something. And a younger man I didn't recognize, expensive suit, but nervous, kept checking his phone." Marcus pulled up surveillance footage on Cassandra's wall-mounted screen. "That's James Morrison, a junior partner at Adrian's old law firm. He specializes in corporate takeovers and succession disputes." The pieces clicked into place with horrible clarity. This wasn't just an assassination, it was a coordinated corporate coup. Kill Cassandra, trigger a succession crisis, and use the chaos to seize control of Drake Industries. "How many others are involved?" Cassandra asked. "Based on the financial transfers and communication patterns, at least a dozen," Marcus replied. "All people with grudges from the Singapore project or those who stand to benefit from a change in leadership." Daniel moved closer to the screen, studying the faces. "In Afghanistan, we called this an insurgency. Can't fight it head on, too many enemies, too many unknowns. You need to be smarter, turn them against each other." "You have a plan?" Cassandra asked. "Not yet, but I know someone who might help. My brother-in-law, Sarah's brother. He's a forensic accountant, specializes in corporate fraud. If there's a money trail, he'll find it." "Call him," Cassandra said immediately. "Whatever he needs, he'll have." As Daniel made the call, Cassandra found herself reassessing everything about her life. She'd built walls around herself, created a fortress of wealth and power that she'd thought impregnable. But the enemy had been inside all along, and the only person who'd tried to save her was someone she'd never bothered to notice. "He'll be here in an hour," Daniel reported. "Michael doesn't sleep much anyway. Lost his sister, threw himself into work. Sound familiar?" Cassandra recognized the gentle probe. Your daughter seems to have handled the loss better than both of us. Children are resilient, but she has nightmares, asks why mommy can't come back. I tell her that mommy's watching over us, making sure we're safe. He paused. Tonight when I saw you about to eat that dessert, I could almost hear Sarah's voice telling me to stop you. Crazy, right? No, Cassandra said softly. Not crazy at all. The next hour passed in a blur of activity. Michael arrived, a younger version of Daniel with the same honest eyes, but carrying the weight of grief differently channeled into fierce focus. He dove into the financial records with the intensity of a man with nothing left to lose but everything to prove. This is sophisticated, he said after 30 minutes of analysis. They've been planning this for at least a year. Shell companies' offshore accounts bribed officials. Adrian's just the face of it. Richard Vance is the architect. Can we prove it? Cassandra asked. Not in court, not yet, but I can make their financial web visible. Once people see the connections, the conspiracy becomes obvious. Daniel had been silent, studying the patterns on the screen. Suddenly he straightened. There's something else. The timing. Why tonight? Why not wait for a better opportunity? Cassandra thought about it. The quarterly board meeting is next week. Major decisions about the company's future direction. No, Marcus interjected. It's more than that. I just got word from my contact at the SEC. They're planning to announce an investigation into Drake Industries' overseas operations on Monday. Someone leaked information about potential violations. Let me guess, Cassandra said grimly. The Singapore project. Among others, if you were dead, Adrian could position himself as the reformer, the one who cleans house and cooperates with authorities. He'd look like a hero while consolidating power. Daniel stood up abruptly. Then we need to move faster than they expect. Miss Drake, how much do you trust your board? Right now, not at all. Wrong answer. You trust the ones who have the most to lose if the company fails. The ones who've been with you longest, who have their entire portfolios tied to Drake Industries' success. They're not loyal to you, but they're loyal to their own interests. It was brutal logic, but Cassandra recognized its truth. There are 3, maybe 4 board members who fit that description. Call them, tonight. Tell them about the assassination attempt, the conspiracy, everything. Make them understand that if Adrian wins, they lose everything. And if they're part of it, then we'll know immediately by their reaction. Daniel's military training was showing through tactical thinking, risk assessment, strategic planning. As Cassandra began making calls, Daniel's phone rang. It was the security detail watching his apartment. Mr. Merrick, there's been an incident. Someone tried to break into your apartment. We intercepted them, but you need to know they were professionals. This isn't over. Daniel's face went pale. Lily, she's safe. We moved her to the secure location as you instructed. She's asking for you. He looked at Cassandra, torn between protecting his daughter and helping unravel the conspiracy. Go, Cassandra said. Be with Lily. We'll handle things here. No. His voice was firm. They came after my daughter because I helped you. Now I'm not just involved, I'm committed. Michael, can you... I'll go, Michael said immediately. Lily knows me. I'll keep her safe while you finish this. The brothers clasped hands briefly, a lifetime of shared loss and mutual support communicated in that simple gesture. As Michael left, Cassandra's first call connected. Board member Harrison Wade, 70 years old with Drake Industries since its founding. Cassandra, it's 3 a.m. What's wrong? She told him everything, holding nothing back. The silence on the other end stretched so long she thought he'd hung up. That bastard, Harrison finally said. I knew something was off about Adrian. Too smooth, too eager. I'm coming to the office. We need to call an emergency board meeting before they can regroup. One by one, she made the calls. 3 board members immediately pledged support. 1 hung up without a word, clearly part of the conspiracy. 2 others were unreachable, which was suspicious in itself. By dawn, the Drake Industries boardroom was filling with allies and lawyers. Daniel stood in the corner, still in his janitor's uniform. He'd insisted on wearing it, saying it reminded everyone that threats could come from anywhere and help from unexpected sources. Ladies and gentlemen, Cassandra began, we're under attack, not from competitors or market forces, but from within. Last night there was an attempt on my life that was prevented only by the vigilance of Mr. Daniel Merrick, whom you see here. She laid out the evidence, the financial transfers, the secret meetings, the assassination attempt. Michael's analysis was projected on the screen, showing the web of connections that linked Adrian Vance and their co-conspirators. "This is outrageous," Harrison Wade thundered. "We need to contact the authorities immediately." "Already done," Marcus reported. "The FBI's white-collar crime division is very interested, but Miss Drake wanted to inform the board first to prevent any panic in the markets." "Where's Adrian now?" asked board member Patricia Ling. "Under surveillance. He doesn't know we're onto him yet. We're hoping he'll make contact with Vance, give us more evidence." Daniel stepped forward. "There's another issue. They came after my daughter last night. This isn't just corporate warfare anymore. They're willing to hurt innocents. We need to end this quickly." The room fell silent. The board members accustomed to battling with spreadsheets and stock options were suddenly confronted with the reality of physical danger. "What do you propose?" Harrison asked. Cassandra looked at Daniel, then made a decision that would have seemed insane 24 hours ago. "I propose we make Mr. Merrick our new Director of Corporate Security, effective immediately. He's already proven he sees what others miss." "He's a janitor," someone protested. "He's a Marine veteran with combat experience, a father who understands what it means to protect what matters, and the only person who saw through a conspiracy that fooled all of us," Cassandra countered. "Unless someone has a better suggestion." No one did. As the meeting continued, Daniel's phone buzzed with a text from Michael. "Lily's safe. She wants to know if you caught the bad guys yet. Also, she drew you a picture of Miss Drake as a butterfly. It's actually pretty good." Despite everything, Daniel smiled. In the midst of corporate espionage and attempted murder, his daughter still saw the world through an artist's eyes, finding beauty even in danger. The boardroom's tension was palpable as Harrison Wade's phone suddenly vibrated against the mahogany table. His face drained of color as he read the message, and without a word he turned the screen toward Cassandra. The text was simple but chilling: "Stop now, or the janitor's daughter dies." Daniel was moving before anyone else could react, his phone already in his hand as he called Michael. The call went straight to voicemail. He tried the security detail. No answer. His Marine training kicked in, the battlefield calm that had kept him alive in Afghanistan, settling over him like armor. "They're making their move," he said quietly, but his voice carried enough authority to silence the room. "This is a distraction tactic. They want us panicked, making mistakes." Cassandra watched him with growing respect. While her board members were visibly shaken, Daniel was already thinking 3 steps ahead. "Marcus, get back up to the safe house immediately. Patricia, continue the meeting. Document everything. Harrison, contact the FBI and update them. This just became kidnapping." "You're not going alone," Daniel said firmly. "I'm not going at all," Cassandra replied. "That's what they expect. We're going to be smarter." She turned to Marcus. "Show me the safe house security feeds." Marcus pulled up the feeds on his tablet, and they all crowded around to look. The safe house appeared normal quiet in the early morning light. Too quiet. Daniel spotted at first a shadow where there shouldn't be one. A car parked at an angle that blocked the camera's view of the front door. "They're already there," he said, "but they're waiting. They want to use Lily as leverage, which means she's still safe, for now." His phone rang. Unknown number. He looked at Cassandra, who nodded. He put it on speaker. "Mr. Merrick." The voice was smooth, cultured Richard Vance. "I believe we have something that belongs to you. If you hurt her, please, we're not monsters. She's perfectly safe playing with her Uncle Michael, who's being very cooperative. All we want is for Miss Drake to reconsider her position. Perhaps a meeting to discuss a peaceful transition of power." Daniel's jaw clenched, but his voice remained steady. "Let me talk to her." There was a pause, then Lily's voice came through, bright and unafraid. "Daddy, Uncle Michael and I are playing cards. There are some weird men here, but Uncle Michael says they're just confused. Are you coming to get us soon?" "Very soon, sweetheart. Be good for Uncle Michael, okay?" "Okay, Daddy. Oh, and tell the pretty lady I finished her butterfly picture." The innocence in her voice made the threat even more obscene. Daniel's hands clenched into fists, but his expression remained controlled. Vance came back on the line. "Charming child. It would be such a shame if anything happened to her. 1 hour, Miss Drake. Come to the old Singapore project site, you know the one. Come alone or the girl pays for your stubbornness. The line went dead. The boardroom erupted in arguments, some saying they should comply, others insisting they call in law enforcement immediately. But Cassandra and Daniel were looking at each other, a silent communication passing between them. The Singapore site has been abandoned for 5 years, Cassandra said slowly. It's a construction zone, half-finished buildings, no security cameras. Perfect for an ambush, Daniel finished. They don't want a negotiation. They want you dead and me silenced. So what do we do? Patricia Ling asked, her usual composure cracking. Daniel pulled out his notebook again, sketching a rough map from memory. The site has 3 entrances. They'll expect Miss Drake to come through the main one, but there's a service tunnel that connects to the subway maintenance corridors, I know, because I pulled a security shift there once when they were doing the initial construction. You're suggesting we ambush the ambushers, Marcus asked. I'm suggesting we give them what they want partially. Daniel looked at Cassandra. How good are your acting skills? Before she could answer, Michael's voice came through on a video call he'd somehow managed to initiate. His face was bruised but determined. Daniel, I'm sorry they caught us off guard. Not your fault, Daniel interrupted. Are you hurt? Nothing serious. They've got us in some kind of warehouse. I can see construction equipment through the window. Lily's okay, I've convinced her it's an adventure. But Daniel, there are at least 8 men here, all armed. Keep her calm. We're coming. The video cut off abruptly. Daniel turned to the room, his transformation from janitor to soldier complete. I need 3 things: a vehicle. They won't recognize someone who can pass for Miss Drake at a distance, and a distraction big enough to draw their attention. I can help with the distraction, Harrison Wade said unexpectedly. Everyone turned to stare at the elderly board member. I own the demolition company that's scheduled to take down the Singapore site next month. I can move up the timeline, say there was a gas leak that requires immediate action. And I can pass for Cassandra, Patricia Ling offered. We're roughly the same height and build, with the right clothes and hair. Cassandra was already pulling off her distinctive jacket. Daniel's right. They expect me to walk into their trap like a concerned CEO trying to save face, but they don't expect us to know the real game. As Patricia transformed into a reasonable facsimile of Cassandra with the help of Jennifer's emergency makeup kit, Daniel outlined his plan with military precision. It was risky, depending on timing and misdirection, but it was their best shot. There's one more thing, Marcus said quietly. Chef Beaumont talked. Adrian promised him $1 million to poison the dessert. But here's the interesting part. Adrian didn't know about the acacia specifically. Someone else provided the poison and the specific instructions. Someone with medical knowledge. Cassandra's eyes widened. Dr. Elizabeth Trent. She's on our board, runs a pharmaceutical company. She would know exactly how to hide the acacia, how to make it undetectable until it was too late. She was one of the ones who didn't answer your call, Patricia noted. The pieces were falling into place, revealing a conspiracy more extensive than they'd imagined. But there was no time to unravel it all now. Lily was in danger, and every minute counted. 40 minutes later, a nondescript van pulled up to the Singapore site's main entrance. Patricia Ling, dressed in Cassandra's clothes with her hair styled similarly, stepped out. She moved with Cassandra's confident stride, a performance that would have been convincing from a distance. Hidden in the service tunnel, Daniel and the real Cassandra watched through Marcus's surveillance equipment as Patricia approached the abandoned building. Vance appeared at a window, confirming their suspicions about the location. Now, Daniel whispered into his comm unit. The demolition crews arrived with sirens blaring their trucks surrounding the site. Bulldozers and wrecking balls moved into position with theatrical urgency. Harrison Wade, playing his part perfectly, was on a bullhorn announcing an emergency demolition due to structural instability. The chaos was immediate. Vance's men scrambled, unsure whether this was part of the plan or a genuine threat. In the confusion, Daniel and Cassandra slipped through the service tunnel, emerging in the building's basement. They could hear voices above, angry, confused, scared. Good. Fear made people sloppy. Third floor, Daniel whispered, recognizing the architectural layout from the video call. They'll have Lily in an interior room away from windows. They moved through the building like shadows, Daniel leading with the practiced stealth of a combat veteran. Cassandra followed, surprised by her own ability to stay quiet to control her breathing, despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. On the second floor, they encountered their first guard, a young man who looked barely out of college, holding his gun like he'd learned from movies rather than training. Daniel disabled him with a precise strike to the pressure point at his neck, catching him before he could fall and make noise. "Cable ties," he whispered to Cassandra, who produced them from the tactical vest Marcus had provided. They secured the unconscious guard and moved on. The third floor was more heavily guarded. Through a crack in the stairwell door, they could see 4 men stationed around a central room. Inside, they could hear Lily's voice, still remarkably calm, telling Michael a story about brave butterflies. "We need another distraction," Daniel breathed. Cassandra pulled out her phone, typing rapidly. Within seconds, the building's old fire alarm system activated. She'd hacked it using administrator codes that hadn't been changed since Drake Industries owned the property. The piercing wail sent the guards into confusion. 2 of them headed for the stairs to investigate, leaving only 2 at the door. Daniel moved fast, taking down the first guard before he knew what was happening. The second managed to shout a warning before Cassandra, acting on pure instinct, grabbed a piece of rebar and struck him across the shoulders, sending him crumpling to the ground. They burst through the door to find Michael standing protectively in front of Lily, facing down Richard Vance himself, who held a gun with the casual confidence of someone who'd used it before. "Well," Vance said, not seeming surprised. "The real Miss Drake. I wondered when you'd show yourself." "It's over, Richard," Cassandra said steadily. "The FBI is already arresting Adrian. Dr. Trent is in custody. Your conspiracy is falling apart." "Perhaps, but I still have the child." He shifted the gun toward Lily, and Daniel tensed, ready to throw himself forward. "No, you don't," Lily said suddenly, her young voice cutting through the tension. Everyone turned to look at her. She was holding something in her small hand, Vance's phone, which she'd somehow pickpocketed while he was distracted. "Uncle Michael taught me a magic trick." The moment of surprise was all Daniel needed. He lunged forward, knocking the gun aside as it fired the bullet, embedding harmlessly in the ceiling. Vance fought back with surprising strength for his age, but Daniel had youth and training on his side. Within seconds, Vance was on the ground, immobilized. "Daddy!" Lily ran to Daniel, who caught her up in his arms, holding her tight enough that she squeaked. "Did I do good?" "You did perfect, sweetheart," he said, his voice thick with emotion. Cassandra was already on her phone, coordinating with law enforcement who were flooding the building. As Vance was led away in handcuffs, he turned back to look at her. "You think you've won," he said. "But Drake Industries was built on secrets and lies. Your father knew. That's why he made the Singapore deal in the first place, to bury the evidence. You might want to ask yourself what evidence that was." Before Cassandra could respond, he was gone, hustled into a police car. She stood frozen, his words echoing in her mind. What had her father been hiding? "Hey," Daniel said softly, still holding Lily but reaching out to touch Cassandra's shoulder. "Whatever he meant, we'll figure it out. Together." The word "together" settled over Cassandra like a warm blanket. When was the last time someone had offered to stand by her without expecting something in return? Back at Drake Industries, the boardroom had become a war room. FBI agents were reviewing documents. Cybersecurity experts were tracing digital footprints, and lawyers were preparing charges against the conspirators. In the middle of it all, Lily sat at the massive conference table, calmly coloring her butterfly pictures as if this was all perfectly normal. "She's remarkable," Cassandra said to Daniel, watching the little girl work. "She's had to be," Daniel replied. "After Sarah died, she had to grow up fast. Too fast. I tried to protect her from the harsh realities, but kids see everything." "Like their fathers," Cassandra noted. "You see everything too." Daniel shrugged. "It's a survival skill. In Afghanistan, in the janitorial night shift in single parenthood, you learn to notice the details that matter." Agent Sarah Kim from the FBI approached them. "Missy Drake, we've arrested 12 people so far, including 3 board members and several mid-level executives. But we need your help understanding the full scope of this. Vance's comment about your father, was there any truth to it?" Cassandra hesitated. The Singapore project had always been her father's baby, something he'd pursued despite her objections when she was still a junior executive. After his death and her promotion to CEO, she'd shut it down on principle, seeing only the surface corruption. But what if there had been more? I need to access my father's private files, she said finally. They're in a safe in the family estate. I haven't opened it since he died. I'll go with you, Daniel offered. Daddy, can I come too? Lily piped up. I want to see a real mansion. Cassandra found herself smiling despite everything. Of course you can come. I might even have some art supplies you'd like. The Drake estate was an hour outside the city, a sprawling Victorian mansion that had been in the family for generations. As they drove up the winding driveway, Lily's face was pressed against the window, taking in the manicured gardens and fountains with wide-eyed wonder. It's like a fairy tale, she breathed. More like a museum, Cassandra said. I haven't lived here since I was 18. Too many memories. They entered through the main hall, their footsteps echoing on marble floors. Family portraits lined the walls, generations of Drakes who'd built the empire Cassandra now controlled. Her father's portrait dominated the far wall, his stern face seeming to watch their progress. He looked scary, Lily observed with a child's honest assessment. He was, Cassandra admitted. Brilliant, driven, but not particularly warm. He built Drake Industries into what it is today, but the cost. She trailed off, leading them to his study. The safe was hidden behind a false panel in the bookshelf, its existence known only to Cassandra and her late father. She input the combination, her grandmother's birthday, the one soft spot her father had possessed, and the heavy door swung open. Inside were documents, photographs, and a letter addressed to her in her father's handwriting. With trembling hands, she opened it. My dear Cassandra, she read aloud. If you're reading this, then I'm dead and you've discovered the safe. There are things about Drake Industries you need to know, things I never had the courage to tell you while I lived. The letter detailed a web of compromises and moral failures that stretched back decades. Her father had discovered that Drake Industries' early success had been built on stolen intellectual property, bribed officials, and destroyed competitors. The Singapore project had been his attempt to legitimize everything to launder not just money, but the company's entire history. He knew it was wrong. Cassandra continued, reading, her voice hollow. But he couldn't see a way out without destroying everything our family had built. He hoped I would be stronger, make better choices. That's why he promoted me so quickly. He wanted someone with clean hands to take over. Daniel moved closer, not touching her, but offering his presence as support. You did make better choices. You shut down the Singapore project. You've run the company ethically. But it's all built on a foundation of lies, Cassandra said, the weight of the revelation crushing. Everything I've worked for, everything I've achieved, it's tainted. No, Daniel said firmly. What's tainted is the past. What you've built since taking over, that's real. That's yours. Lily looked up from her coloring. My daddy says that butterflies used to be caterpillars. They were totally different before, but they became something beautiful. Maybe your company is like that. The simple wisdom of the child's words hit Cassandra like a physical blow. She looked at the portrait of her father, then at the letter in her hands, and finally at Daniel and Lily. This unlikely family that had entered her life through an act of attempted murder and transformed it into something else entirely. Your daughter is quite the philosopher, she said to Daniel. She gets it from her mother, Daniel replied softly. Sarah always saw the best in everything, even when life was hard. Cassandra made a decision then, one that would have shocked her father and probably most of her board. I'm going to go public with all of this. Every detail, every crime, every cover-up. Drake Industries needs to atone for its past if it's going to have a legitimate future. That could destroy the company, Daniel warned. Stock prices will plummet. Lawsuits will follow. You could lose everything. Then I lose everything, Cassandra said with surprising calm. But at least I'll be able to sleep at night. Her phone rang. It was Marcus. Miss Drake, you need to see the news. Adrian Cross is making a statement. They turned on the television in her father's study to find Adrian still in custody, but speaking to reporters through his lawyer. He was painting himself as a whistleblower, claiming he'd discovered the company's dark history and had been trying to expose it when Cassandra had him framed for attempted murder. She knew about her father's crimes, Adrian was saying. She's been covering them up just like he did. The assassination attempt a fabrication to distract from the real story. I have documents that prove everything. He's trying to control the narrative, Daniel observed. Make himself the hero and you the villain. Cassandra's phone was already ringing board members, investors, reporters, all wanting her response. The empire her family had built over generations was crumbling in real time. Miss Drake, Lily said, tugging on her sleeve, do you want to see the butterfly I drew for you? Despite everything, Cassandra knelt down to look at the picture. It was beautiful in its simplicity, a butterfly emerging from a cocoon painted in brilliant purples and golds with smaller butterflies surrounding it. These are all the people who helped the butterfly, Lily explained, pointing to the smaller figures. Because nobody becomes a butterfly alone. They need friends. Looking at the drawing, Cassandra felt something shift inside her. She'd spent her entire adult life alone at the top, trusting no one, building walls to protect herself. But in the last 24 hours, a janitor and his daughter had shown her a different way to live. We need to get back to the city, she said, standing with renewed determination. If Adrian wants a fight for the narrative, he'll get one. But we're going to tell the whole truth, not just the parts that serve us. The drive back was quiet, each of them lost in thought. As they neared the city, Daniel's phone rang. It was Michael. Turn on Channel 7, Michael said urgently. Now. They found a news station on the car's entertainment system. The anchor was interviewing someone unexpected, Chef Auguste Beaumont, who'd apparently made a deal with prosecutors for immunity in exchange for his testimony. Mr. Cross approached me weeks ago, Beaumont was saying. He knew about Miss Drake's grandmother's acacia allergy from old medical records. He provided the concentrated oil and specific instructions on how to hide it in the dessert. He said it would look like an accident, an unfortunate oversight in the kitchen. But that contradicts what Mr. Cross just claimed, the interviewer pressed. Mr. Cross is lying, Beaumont said bluntly. I have recordings of our conversations. I started taping them when I realized what he was really asking me to do. I thought it was just about making her sick, creating a scandal. I didn't know it could kill her until that janitor started shouting. The interviewer leaned forward. You mean Daniel Merrick? Yes, that man saved her life. If Miss Drake had taken even one bite of that dessert, she would have died within minutes. Mr. Cross was counting on it happening in a room full of witnesses, making it look like a tragic accident. In the car, Daniel and Cassandra exchanged glances. The narrative was shifting again, the truth beginning to emerge from the lies. By the time they reached Drake Industries headquarters, a crowd had gathered. Reporters, employees, protesters, and supporters all waited to see how Cassandra would respond to the chaos. Security tried to clear a path, but Cassandra stopped them. No, she said. I'm not hiding anymore. She walked through the crowd, Daniel and Lily beside her, answering questions as she went. But, Miss Drake, did you know about your father's crimes? I discovered them today. I'm as shocked as anyone. Will you resign? That's for the board to decide, but first I'm going to ensure every crime is exposed and every victim is compensated. What about Mr. Merrick? Is it true he saved your life? Cassandra stopped, turning to face the cameras fully. Yes, Daniel Merrick, a janitor who everyone overlooked, saw what no one else did. He risked everything to save a stranger's life. He's the kind of person Drake Industries should celebrate, not ignore. She looked at Daniel, who was clearly uncomfortable with the attention, but standing firm. Mr. Merrick has agreed to serve as our new Director of Security Operations effective immediately. His first task will be to review all our safety protocols, ensuring that every employee from the boardroom to the basement is protected and valued. That's quite a promotion for a janitor, someone called out. That's quite a hero you're dismissing as just a janitor, Cassandra shot back. How many of you would have risked your job, your reputation, everything to save someone who'd never even noticed you existed? The crowd fell silent. Inside the building, the board was in emergency session. Harrison Wade stood as Cassandra entered, Daniel still at her side, while Lily waited with Michael in the anteroom. Cassandra, Harrison said gravely, the situation is dire. Stock prices have dropped 30%. 3 major investors have pulled out. There are calls for your resignation from multiple quarters. I know, Cassandra said simply, and I'm prepared to resign if that's what the board decides. But first I have a proposal. She outlined her plan, full transparency about the company's past crimes. A comprehensive audit of all current operations reparations to those harmed by her father's actions, and a complete restructuring of corporate governance to prevent future corruption. This will cost billions, someone protested. The alternative is living a lie, Cassandra replied. I've seen what that does to people. It nearly got me killed. The board debated for hours. Daniel waited with Cassandra offering silent support. Finally, as evening fell, Harrison Wade delivered the verdict. The board has voted. By a narrow margin, you retain your position as CEO. But there are conditions. Full transparency as you proposed. A new ethics committee with real power. And Mr. Merrick serves not just as director of security, but as employee advocate, ensuring that every level of this company is heard and protected. Cassandra felt her knees weaken with relief. Daniel's hand found her elbow, steadying her. There's one more thing, Harrison added, a slight smile creasing his weathered face. The board unanimously approves a complete review of our compensation structure. No one who works full-time for Drake Industries should struggle to pay medical bills for their children. It was a direct reference to Daniel's situation, and Cassandra saw him swallow hard emotion threatening to overwhelm his composure. As the board members filed out, Patricia Ling stopped beside them. You did the right thing, she said to Cassandra. Then to Daniel, both of you did. Sometimes it takes an outsider to show us what we've become blind to. That evening, as the sun set over the city, Cassandra found herself in her office with Daniel and Lily. The little girl was curled up on the leather couch, exhausted from the day's adventures, her butterfly drawings scattered around her. Thank you, Cassandra said to Daniel, for everything, for saving my life, for standing by me today, for showing me there's another way to live. You would have figured it out eventually, Daniel said, though his smile suggested he wasn't entirely sure about that. Would I? I've been so isolated for so long I'd forgotten what genuine human connection felt like. She looked at Lily sleeping peacefully despite everything that had happened. Your daughter is lucky to have you. We're a package deal, Daniel said softly. Lily and I, we're a team. Have been since we lost Sarah. I know, Cassandra said, and that's what I wanted to talk to you about. The position Director of Security and Employee Advocate, it's not just a job. It's going to require long hours, difficult decisions, and probably some danger as we root out the remaining corruption. I can't ask you to take that on, not with Lily to consider. Daniel was quiet for a long moment, looking at his sleeping daughter. You know what Lily asked me this morning? Before any of this happened, she asked if good people always win. I didn't know how to answer her, but then today happened, and despite everything, the danger, the conspiracy, the attempts on your life, good people did win. Not because we were stronger or smarter, but because we looked out for each other. He turned to face Cassandra fully. I'll take the position, but on one condition. Drake Industries creates an on-site childcare facility, not just for executives, but for all employees. Lily needs to be somewhere safe while I work, and so do the children of every other single parent in this company. Done, Cassandra said immediately. We'll make it the best facility in the city. Then I guess we're partners. Daniel extended his hand. Cassandra shook it, feeling the calluses that spoke of honest work, the strength that had protected her, the gentleness that cared for a grieving child. Partners. Over the next weeks, the transformation of Drake Industries became a business school case study in radical transparency. Cassandra held daily press conferences revealing every historical crime and current reform. Stock prices initially plummeted, then slowly began to recover as investors recognized the company's genuine commitment to change. Daniel threw himself into his new role with military precision. He reorganized security from the ground up, but more importantly, he created channels for employees at every level to report concerns and suggestions. The janitor who'd saved the CEO's life became a symbol of the new Drake Industries one, where every person mattered. The on-site childcare facility was fast-tracked, and Lily became its first official student. She turned it into her art studio, decorating the walls with butterflies that she said represented each child's potential to transform. Adrian Cross was convicted of attempted murder and conspiracy. Richard Vance received life in prison. Dr. Elizabeth Trent lost her medical license and faced multiple charges. The conspiracy was thoroughly dismantled, its roots pulled out completely. But the biggest change was in Cassandra herself. She began arriving at the office earlier, not to avoid people as she once had, but to walk through the building and greet the maintenance staff finishing their night shifts. She knew their names now, their stories, their struggles. The executive elevator that had once been her private sanctuary was now open to all employees. The walls she'd built around herself were coming down brick by brick. 3 months after the night that changed everything, Cassandra stood in the newly completed childcare center, watching Lily teach a group of younger children how to paint butterflies. Daniel was beside her reviewing security protocols for the facility's opening ceremony the next day. "She's a natural teacher," Cassandra observed, smiling as Lily patiently helped a little boy who was struggling with his brush. "She gets that from Sarah, too," Daniel said, his voice warm with memory rather than sharp with grief. Sarah taught elementary school before Lily was born. She always said children see the world more clearly than adults because they haven't learned to ignore the important things yet. "Your wife sounds like she was extraordinary." "She was, but you know what she would have said about all this." Daniel gestured to the transformed company around them. "She would have said it was always there waiting, the capacity for change, for goodness. It just needed someone brave enough to see it." Before Cassandra could respond, her phone buzzed with an urgent message from Marcus. "We have a problem. Someone's been buying up Drake Industries stock through shell companies. We're about to face a hostile takeover." The warmth of the moment evaporated. Cassandra and Daniel rushed to the executive conference room where Marcus had set up a war room of sorts with real-time stock tickers and financial data streaming across multiple screens. "How much have they acquired?" Cassandra demanded. 28% and climbing. At this rate, they'll have controlling interest by market close tomorrow. Who's behind it? That's the problem. The shell companies are registered in different countries, all leading to dead ends. But the coordination the capital required, this is someone with serious resources and a personal stake. Daniel studied the patterns on the screen, his tactical mind working through the problem. "They waited until we were vulnerable, stock prices still recovering from the transparency campaign. But why now? What triggered this?" Jennifer burst into the room, her usually perfect composure shattered. "Miss Drake, you need to see this. It just came through the mailroom." She handed Cassandra a package wrapped in brown paper. Inside was a chess piece, a black king, and a note in elegant handwriting. "Your father took everything from me. Now I return the favor. You have 24 hours to surrender the company, or I release documents that will destroy not just Drake Industries, but you personally." V.S. V.S. Marcus frowned. "Vincent Slade." Cassandra's face went white. "That's impossible. He died 15 years ago." "Who's Vincent Slade?" Daniel asked. "My father's former partner," Cassandra said, slowly sinking into a chair. "They built the company together, but my father forced him out when he discovered Vincent was embezzling. Vincent disappeared after losing everything. There were rumors he'd committed suicide, but no body was ever found." "Apparently he's been planning his revenge for a very long time," Marcus said grimly. The phone in the center of the table rang. Cassandra answered on speaker. "Hello, Cassandra." The voice was old but strong, carrying a bitter edge that spoke of years of resentment. "Or should I say hello to the daughter of the man who destroyed my life?" "Vincent, you're supposed to be dead." Death can be quite liberating. It gives you time to plan, to prepare, to wait for the perfect moment. Did you know your father visited me before he died? He wanted to make amends, to confess his sins. He told me everything, including the truth about your mother's death." Cassandra's breath caught. Her mother had died when she was 12, supposedly in a car accident. "What about my mother?" "All in good time. First, let's discuss terms. You'll transfer your shares to me by noon tomorrow. You'll resign publicly, admitting to all your father's crimes and your own complicity. Or I release evidence that will send you to prison for a very long time." "What evidence? I've already revealed everything about my father's crimes." Vincent's laugh was cold. Did you reveal the offshore accounts in your name, the ones your father set up when you were a child, using your identity to launder money? You may not have known about them, but ignorance isn't a defense. The FBI will be very interested to learn about the $50 million that passed through accounts bearing your signature. Daniel moved closer to Cassandra, who had gone rigid with shock. He placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. "That's impossible. she said. I never signed anything like that. Your father was quite good at forgery, but the prosecutors won't care about that. They'll see your name, the money, the timing. Even if you're eventually exonerated, the investigation will destroy you. Your reputation, your freedom, everything you've worked to build, gone. Why? Cassandra asked. Why not just come after my father when he was alive? Because destroying him wasn't enough. He took everything from me, my company, my reputation, my family. My wife left me, my children won't speak to me. I wanted him to know that same loss. Taking Drake Industries from you, his precious daughter, his chosen successor. That's the revenge I've been planning for 15 years. The line went dead. The room was silent for a moment, then erupted in activity. Marcus was calling contacts at the FBI, Jennifer was pulling financial records, and Harrison Wade, who'd arrived during the call, was on the phone with corporate lawyers. But Daniel was watching Cassandra, seeing the devastation in her eyes. Hey, he said quietly, moving to block her view of the chaos. Look at me. She met his gaze and he saw the scared young woman beneath the CEO facade. We're going to fight this, he said firmly, the same way we fought Adrian and Vance, together. This is different, Cassandra whispered. If those accounts exist, if he has that evidence, I could go to prison. Even if I'm innocent, the scandal will destroy everything we've worked to rebuild. Then we find another way. Vincent Slade made one mistake, he announced himself. He's not hiding anymore. That makes him vulnerable. Lily appeared in the doorway, having somehow slipped past security. She was carrying her art supplies and looked concerned. Miss Cassandra. You look sad again. Lily, sweetheart, you shouldn't be here. Daniel started, but Cassandra held up a hand. It's okay. She managed a smile for the little girl. I am sad. Someone is trying to take away the company. Lily considered this seriously, then pulled out a drawing from her folder. When I'm sad, I look at this. It's the picture I made of Mommy as a butterfly. Daddy says even though she's gone, she's still with us in different ways. Maybe the company is like that. Even if someone takes it, what you built, the good stuff that stays. The innocent wisdom hit everyone in the room. Cassandra looked at the drawing, then at Lily, then at Daniel. Something shifted in her expression, determination replacing despair. Marcus, I need you to find everything you can about Vincent Slade's supposed death. Death certificate, witnesses, anything. Jennifer, pull all records of my signatures from when I was a child, school documents, medical forms, anything that could be compared to these supposed account signatures. Harrison, I need you to call an emergency board meeting. What are you planning? Daniel asked. Vincent wants to take the company fine, but he's going to have to do it publicly, legally, and in the light of day. No more shadows, no more secrets. She turned to address the room. And get me the best forensic accountant in the country. If these accounts exist, I want to know every detail, when they were created, how they were accessed, and most importantly, where the money went. Michael Merrick walked in just then, having been summoned by Daniel. I heard you need a forensic accountant. The best, Cassandra confirmed. Then you need my mentor, Professor Angela Chen at Columbia. She literally wrote the book on financial forensics. She also happens to hate corruption with a passion that borders on religious fervor. Within an hour, Professor Chen was video conferencing from her office, her sharp eyes taking in every detail as Michael and her team explained the situation. Interesting, she said after reviewing the preliminary data. These shell companies buying your stock, they're using a very specific pattern. I've seen it before about 15 years ago, a case I consulted on involving embezzlement and money laundering. Vincent Slade's case, Cassandra asked. No, your father's acquisition of Pembroke Technologies, the company Vincent was using to hide his embezzlement. Professor Chen pulled up old files. But here's what's interesting. The money that was supposedly embezzled, it never existed. Your father created false transactions to make it look like Vincent was stealing. The room went silent. You're saying my father framed Vincent Slade? Cassandra's voice was barely a whisper. I'm saying the evidence suggests that possibility. I could never prove it at the time. Your father was very clever. But if Vincent Slade is alive and has been planning this for 15 years, he might have found the proof I couldn't. Daniel's phone buzzed. It was building security. Mr. Merrick, there's a man here claiming to be Vincent Slade. He says Miss Drake is expecting him. Bring him up, Cassandra said, surprising everyone. Full security detail, but bring him up. That's not safe, Marcus protested. He's not here to hurt me physically. He wants to see my face when he destroys everything. Let him come. 20 minutes later, Vincent Slade walked into the conference room. He was older than his voice had suggested, thin and weathered, but his eyes burned with the intensity of someone who'd lived for nothing but revenge. Cassandra, he said, taking in her appearance with satisfaction. You look just like your mother. She had the same defiant expression when she discovered the truth about your father. What truth? Cassandra demanded. That he was a monster who destroyed anyone who got in his way. Your mother was going to leave him take you with her. She'd discovered what he'd done to me to others. The car accident that killed her, your father arranged it. The words hit Cassandra like physical blows, but she remained standing. Daniel moved closer, ready to catch her if she fell. You're lying, she said, though her voice shook. Am I? Vincent pulled out a worn envelope. Your mother wrote me a letter before she died. She'd found evidence of your father's crimes and wanted to make amends. She never got the chance to send it, but I've had contacts everywhere even then. It found its way to me eventually. He handed the letter to Cassandra. Her mother's handwriting was unmistakable. Dear Mr. Slade, she read aloud, her voice breaking. I've discovered what my husband did to you. The false evidence, the frame up everything. I'm going to the authorities, but I wanted you to know that not all of us are blind to his evil. I hope someday you can forgive us for the pain our family has caused yours. Cassandra's hands trembled as she lowered the letter. Everything she'd believed about her family, her history was crumbling. Your father was a murderer, Vincent said with cold satisfaction. And you've been living off the proceeds of his crimes your entire life. Even your attempts at reform are built on a foundation of blood. No, Daniel said, suddenly stepping forward. You're wrong about one thing. Cassandra isn't her father. She spent the last 3 months exposing every crime, making reparations, transforming this company into something ethical. She's nothing like him. Vincent's gaze shifted to Daniel with contempt. The janitor turned hero. How poetic. Tell me, Mr. Merrick. Do you know about the fund Cassandra's father set up? The one that paid for experimental treatments that might have saved your wife? Oh yes, I know all about you. The treatments existed, but Charles Drake made sure they were only available to the wealthy. Your wife died because she was deemed unworthy of saving. Daniel's face went white, then red with rage. For a moment, Cassandra thought he might actually attack Vincent, but Lily's voice cut through the tension. That's not true. The little girl had been quietly drawing in the corner, but now she stood facing Vincent with surprising courage. My mommy died because she was allergic. It was nobody's fault, and Miss Cassandra is good. She made sure I could get my medicine, and she gave Daddy an important job, and she's making the company better for everyone. Vincent looked at the child with something that might have been regret. I had a daughter once. She was about your age when your father, he looked at Cassandra, destroyed our family. She grew up without me, believed I was a criminal. She died last year, still refusing to speak to me. So this is about grief, Cassandra said quietly, understanding flooding through her. Not just revenge. You lost everything, including your daughter, and you want me to feel that same loss. Don't psychoanalyze me, Vincent snapped. You have 18 hours left. Transfer the shares or go to prison. No. The simple word hung in the air. Cassandra straightened the CEO persona, settling over her like armor, but somehow different now, tempered with the humanity Daniel and Lily had awakened in her. I won't transfer the shares. If you have evidence of crimes real or fabricated, then present it. I'll face whatever comes. But Drake Industries is no longer my father's company, or even mine alone. It belongs to every employee who's working to make it better, to every investor who believes in our reform, to every community we serve. I won't hand it over to someone whose only motivation is revenge. Then you'll go to prison. Maybe. But at least I'll go knowing I stood for something more than anger and bitterness. Vincent stared at her clearly, not expecting this response. You're as stubborn as your father. No, Cassandra said firmly. My father would have fought dirty, would have found a way to destroy you again. I'm choosing a different path. I'm choosing truth, whatever the cost. Professor Chen, who'd been quietly working on her laptop during the confrontation, suddenly spoke up. Mr. Slade, before you leave, you might want to see what I've discovered. She projected her screen onto the wall. These accounts you're threatening to expose, they do exist. But the metadata tells an interesting story. They were created 15 years ago, yes. But they were accessed repeatedly over the years, money moving in and out. The last access was yesterday from an IP address registered to one of your shell companies. Vincent's face paled. You've been using these accounts yourself, Professor Chen continued. The very accounts you claim prove Cassandra's guilt have your digital fingerprints all over them. If you expose them, you implicate yourself in an ongoing money laundering operation. That's not possible, Vincent stammered. It's all here. Every transaction, every access log. You became the criminal your father accused you of being, Mr. Slade. In your quest for revenge, you became everything you claimed to hate. The room was silent as Vincent absorbed this revelation. His shoulders sagged, the fire in his eyes dimming to ash. It doesn't matter, he said finally. I still have controlling interest. By tomorrow, Drake Industries will be mine. Actually, Harrison Wade said, speaking for the first time, you don't. While you were focused on your dramatic reveal, the board authorized the release of new shares from the company treasury. Employees have been buying them all day at a discounted rate. Your 28% is now effectively 21%. You're the largest single shareholder, but you don't have control. Vincent looked around the room at Cassandra standing strong, despite everything, at Daniel protecting her without question, at Lily drawing butterflies, as if none of this darkness could touch her innocence, at the board members and employees rallying to defend their company. This isn't over, he said, but the threat sounded hollow. Yes, it is, Cassandra said gently. Vincent, you've spent 15 years living for revenge. Look where it's brought you. Your daughter died thinking you were a criminal, and now you've actually become one. My father destroyed your life, and I'm sorrier than you'll ever know, but destroying mine won't bring yours back. She took a step toward him, and Daniel tensed, ready to intervene if necessary. But Cassandra's approach wasn't threatening, it was compassionate. Let it go, she said. Your daughter, would she want this? Would she want her father spending his last years consumed by hatred? Vincent's composure finally cracked. A single tear rolled down his weathered cheek. She told me once when she was small that she wanted me to be happy. Before everything fell apart, when she still loved me. Then be happy, Cassandra urged, or at least try. Take your shares, they're legitimately yours. Take the wealth they represent and do something good with it. Honor your daughter's memory by building something instead of destroying. Vincent looked at her for a long moment, then turned and walked out without another word. The room remained silent until his footsteps faded down the hallway. You just let him go? Marcus asked, incredulous. After everything he threatened. He's already in his own prison, Cassandra replied. Besides, Professor Chen is right. If he exposes those accounts, he implicates himself. It's a stalemate. A dangerous stalemate, Daniel warned. He could still cause trouble. Maybe, but I think he's tired. 15 years of anger is exhausting. She turned to the room. Thank you all for standing by me, for standing by the company. As people began to disperse, Lily tugged on Cassandra's sleeve. Miss Cassandra, I made you something. She handed over a new drawing, a butterfly emerging from a dark cocoon into bright sunlight. At the bottom, in careful, childish handwriting, were the words, "Sometimes bad things help us become beautiful." Cassandra knelt down and hugged the little girl, tears finally breaking through her CEO composure. Thank you, sweetheart. It's perfect. Over Daniel's shoulder, she saw him watching them with an expression she couldn't quite read, protective certainly, but something more. Something that made her heart race in a way that had nothing to do with corporate takeovers or family secrets. Later that evening, after the crisis had passed and the lawyers had confirmed that Vincent's takeover attempt had failed, Cassandra found herself alone with Daniel in her office. Lily was asleep on the couch, exhausted from the day's drama. You were incredible today, Daniel said. The way you stood up to Vincent chose truth over safety that took real courage. I learned from the best, Cassandra replied. A certain janitor taught me that doing the right thing is more important than protecting yourself. They stood closer than professional colleagues should, and Cassandra realized she'd been moving toward this moment since the night Daniel saved her life. But there was still so much between them: class differences, the employer-employee relationship, the fresh trauma of everything they'd discovered. "Daniel," she began, but he held up a hand. "I know," he said. "It's complicated. You're my boss, I'm a single father, we're from different worlds. But Cassandra, when I saw you about to eat that dessert, when I thought I might watch another person, He stopped. Started again. "What I'm trying to say is, life's too short and too fragile to ignore what matters." "And what matters?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "This," he said, gesturing to sleeping Lily. "Family in whatever form it takes. Truth even when it hurts. And connection, real connection, not the surface relationships that fill boardrooms and galas." Before Cassandra could respond, her phone rang. It was the FBI. "Miss Drake, we've arrested Vincent Slade. He turned himself in an hour ago along with all evidence of his money laundering operation. He's also provided documentation that confirms your father's role in framing him originally. It's complicated, but the bottom line is you're clear of any criminal wrongdoing." When she hung up, Daniel was smiling. He chose redemption, after all. "Maybe there's hope for all of us," Cassandra said. A month later, Drake Industries held its first annual Butterfly Gala. Lily had named it naturally. Instead of the exclusive affair previous galas had been, this one was open to all employees and their families. The janitors danced next to the executives, their children played together in the supervised play area, and the whole event felt more like a family reunion than a corporate function. Vincent Slade's shares had been quietly sold back to the company after he'd pled guilty to reduced charges. With the money from the sale, he'd established a foundation in his daughter's name to help children who'd lost parents to violence. It was a small step toward redemption, but it was a step. Daniel stood with Cassandra on the balcony watching the celebration below. Lily was teaching a group of children, her butterfly dance, her laughter, carrying over the music. "My father would have hated this," Cassandra said, but she was smiling. "Good thing it's not his company anymore," Daniel replied. "It's yours. Yours and every person down there who's working to make it better." "Ours," Cassandra corrected. "I couldn't have done any of this without you." Daniel turned to face her fully. "Cassandra, there's something I need to tell you. I've been offered a position with another company. Double the salary, less dangerous, more traditional hours." Cassandra's heart stopped. "Are you taking it?" "That depends." "On what?" "On whether I have a reason to stay beyond just the job." The question hung between them, loaded with possibilities. Cassandra thought about the walls she'd built, the isolation she'd accepted as the price of success. Then she thought about the last few months, the warmth of Lily's hugs, the strength of Daniel's presence, the feeling of belonging to something more than a corporate empire. "I can think of several reasons," she said carefully. "The childcare program needs oversight. The employee advocacy program is still developing. The security protocols require constant updating." "All professional reasons," Daniel noted. "There might be personal ones too," Cassandra admitted, "but those are complicated." "The best things usually are." He moved closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something simple and clean, nothing like the expensive fragrances the executives wore. "Sarah taught me that love isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about finding someone whose imperfections complement your own." "I have a lot of imperfections," Cassandra warned. "So do I, but look what we've accomplished despite them, or maybe because of them." From below, Lily's voice rang out, "Daddy, Miss Cassandra, come dance with us." They looked down to see the little girl waving enthusiastically, surrounded by other children who'd taken up the cry. "I think we're being summoned," Daniel said, offering his arm. Cassandra took it, feeling something click into place, not dramatically, but quietly, like the last piece of a puzzle you didn't even know you were solving. As they descended to join the celebration, she caught sight of their reflection in the polished marble walls. A CEO in a designer gown, a former janitor in a rented tuxedo, a little girl who'd lost her mother but refused to stop believing in butterflies. They looked like a family, an unconventional one, certainly, but a family nonetheless. The transformation of Drake Industries continued over the following months. The company became a model for corporate reform, with business schools sending students to study their radical transparency policies and employee-first approach. Stock prices not only recovered but soared to record highs as consumers rewarded the company's ethical stance with their loyalty. But the real changes were smaller, more personal. Cassandra learned to leave the office while the sun was still up, joining Daniel and Lily for dinner in their small apartment that felt more like home than her penthouse ever had. She discovered the joy of helping Lily with homework, of listening to Daniel's stories from his Marine days, of being part of something intimate and real. Daniel learned to navigate the corporate world without losing his authenticity. He brought the same attention to detail that had made him notice the acacia to his new role, identifying security threats, both physical and systemic. But more than that, he became the conscience of the company, the voice reminding everyone that their decisions affected real people with real lives. Lily flourished in the stability and love surrounding her. Her butterfly art evolved from simple drawings to complex paintings that captured both loss and hope. She started calling Cassandra Aunt Cass, a title that meant more to the CEO than any corporate honorific ever had. On the anniversary of Sarah's death, Daniel and Lily visited her grave as they always did. But this time, Cassandra was with them. She stood quietly as Daniel told his late wife about their year, about the night he'd saved his boss's life, about the conspiracy they'd unraveled, about the friendship that had become something more. "I think she would have liked you," Daniel said to Cassandra as they walked back to the car. "I hope so. She raised an amazing daughter and loved an incredible man." Lily, walking between them, reached up and took both their hands. "Mommy's a butterfly now," she said matter-of-factly. "She helped bring us together. That's what butterflies do. They spread their wings and change things just by being beautiful." 6 months after the night of the poisoned dessert, Cassandra stood before the board to deliver her quarterly report. The numbers were impressive: profits up, employee satisfaction at an all-time high, public trust fully restored. But the real victory was in the details: the number of employees who'd been able to afford their children's medical care, the janitors who'd received promotions based on merit rather than connections, the toxic executives who'd been replaced with people who understood that power came with responsibility. "Any questions?" she asked as she concluded her presentation. Harrison Wade raised his hand with a slight smile. "Just one. When are you going to make an honest man out of our director of security?" The board laughed. They'd all noticed the growing closeness between Cassandra and Daniel. What had started as gratitude had evolved into respect, then friendship, then something deeper that neither had quite named yet. "That's not a matter for board discussion," Cassandra said, but she was smiling too. Later in her office, she found Daniel waiting with Lily. The little girl was practically vibrating with excitement. "We have something to ask you," Daniel said, unusually formal. "Daddy, let me do it," Lily interrupted. She pulled out a butterfly painting, but this one was different. In the center, instead of a butterfly, were 3 figures holding hands. "Will you be our family officially?" Cassandra looked from the painting to Daniel's hopeful face to Lily's eager one. She thought about the journey that had brought them here, from a desperate shout in a ballroom to this moment of quiet possibility. "Are you proposing?" she asked Daniel with mock seriousness. "Actually," he said, dropping to one knee and pulling out a small velvet box, "I am." The ring was simple, a single diamond surrounded by small sapphires that caught the light like butterfly wings. It wasn't the massive statement piece her social circle would expect, but it was perfect. "I know we're from different worlds," Daniel began. "I know it hasn't been long. I know there will be people who say a janitor shouldn't marry a CEO, but Cassandra, you've taught me that the only opinions that matter are from the people who truly see us. And I see you not the CEO, not the heiress, but the woman who chose truth over safety, who rebuilt an empire on a foundation of integrity, who made room in her life for a broken janitor and his butterfly-obsessed daughter." "Say yes," Lily Stage whispered. "Please say yes." Cassandra knelt down to their level, abandoning all CEO pretense. "Yes," she said simply. "Yes to both of you. Yes to being a family. Yes to butterflies and bedtime stories and all of it." As Daniel slipped the ring onto her finger and Lily wrapped them both in an enthusiastic hug, Cassandra thought about the night that had started it all. A janitor had saved her life by seeing what everyone else had missed. But in the end, he'd done something even more profound. He'd saved her from a life half-lived, from the isolation she'd mistaken for strength, from the legacy of corruption and loneliness her father had left her. The wedding was held in the Drake Industries Child Care Center, surrounded by butterfly paintings and the laughter of children. Janitors sat next to board members, and everyone danced together when Lily performed her butterfly dance as the flower girl. Vincent Slade sent a letter of congratulations and a donation to the children's medical fund they'd established. In his speech as best man, Michael said something that captured the essence of their story. Daniel always saw what others missed, but it took Cassandra to show him that being seen in return was just as important. They saved each other in all the ways a person can be saved. As the evening wound down and Lily fell asleep in Daniel's arms, Cassandra stood looking out at the city lights, marveling at how much had changed. A year ago, she'd been alone at the top of an empire built on lies. Now she was part of a family leading a company built on truth, surrounded by people who valued her for who she was, rather than what she represented. "Any regrets?" Daniel asked, joining her at the window. "Just one," she said. "I wish I'd noticed you sooner. All those years you worked here and I never saw you. You weren't ready to see me. Neither of us was ready for this." He adjusted Lily in his arms, the little girl murmuring something about butterflies in her sleep. Sarah used to say that timing was everything, that people come into our lives exactly when they're supposed to. Smart woman. "She would have been happy about this," Daniel said softly. "She always told me I'd find love again, that Lily deserved a complete family." I didn't believe her, but she was right. Cassandra leaned into him, careful not to disturb Lily. "My grandmother used to say that the best things in life come from the most unexpected places. I thought she meant business opportunities. Turns out she meant love." As they stood there, CEO, former janitor, and butterfly artist, the city spread before them like a canvas of possibilities. Drake Industries would continue to evolve, facing new challenges and opportunities. There would be difficult days ahead, moments when their different backgrounds created friction, times when the weight of the past pressed heavy on the present. But they would face it all together, a family forged in crisis and strengthened by choice. Because sometimes the most important things in life aren't the ones we plan for or expect. Sometimes they're the things we almost miss, the warning shout that saves a life, the child's drawing that reveals a truth, the love that blooms in the most unlikely soil. In the reflection of the window, Cassandra could see the three of them, and for a moment she could swear she saw a fourth figure, a butterfly-like presence that might have been Sarah or her grandmother, or just the whisper of grace that had brought them all together. "Ready to go home?" Daniel asked. Home. Not her penthouse or his apartment, but the house they'd bought together, in a neighborhood with good schools and a yard big enough for Lily to chase butterflies. "Ready," she said, and meant it in every possible way. As they left the building that had been the site of so much drama and transformation, Lily stirred in Daniel's arms. "Are we a real family now?" she asked sleepily. "The realest," Cassandra assured her. "Good," Lily murmured, settling back into sleep. "The butterflies will be happy." And perhaps they were. Perhaps in some cosmic sense, all the chaos and pain had been necessary to create this moment. Three souls who'd found each other against all odds, who'd chosen love over fear, truth over comfort, and family over isolation. The Drake Industries building stood behind them, lit up against the night sky, no longer a monument to one man's ambition, but a testament to the power of transformation. Inside night, janitors were beginning their shifts, security guards were making their rounds, and somewhere perhaps another unnoticed person was seeing something important that everyone else had missed. Because that's how change really happens, not in boardrooms or at galas, but in the moments when someone chooses to speak up, to reach out, to see beyond the surface, to the human heart beneath. Daniel had seen Cassandra not as an untouchable CEO, but as a person worth saving. Cassandra had seen Daniel not as a mere janitor, but as a man of integrity and courage. And Lily had seen them both as they truly were, two people who needed each other to become complete. The drive to their new home took them through streets wet with evening rain, the city lights creating rivers of gold and silver on the asphalt. Lily had fallen back into deep sleep, her small hand clutching the fabric of Daniel's jacket, while Cassandra navigated the familiar route that still felt wonderfully new each time she traveled it. 3 weeks into their marriage, and the rhythms of their shared life were still finding their shape. This morning had started with a crisis at Drake Industries, a supplier threatening to pull out over the company's new ethical requirements, and Cassandra had left before dawn missing breakfast with her new family. The guilt of it gnawed at her, even as she knew Daniel understood. "You're thinking too loud," Daniel said softly, not wanting to wake Lily. "How do you do it?" Cassandra asked. "Balance everything." "You never seem torn between work and family the way I am." "I had 3 years of practice being a single parent. You've had 3 weeks of having a family at all. Give yourself time." As they pulled into their driveway, Cassandra noticed something wrong immediately. The front door was slightly ajar and there were fresh tire tracks in the mud, beside the garage tracks that didn't match any of their vehicles. Daniel noticed too. His entire posture changed, shifting from relaxed husband to alert Marine in an instant. "Take Lily," he said quietly, transferring the sleeping child to Cassandra's arms. "Get back in the car. If anything happens, drive to Marcus's house." "Daniel, please." His hand briefly touched her cheek. "Let me check it out." But before he could move toward the house, a figure emerged from the shadows of their porch. Cassandra's blood ran cold as she recognized him. Adrian Cross, looking haggard and desperate, nothing like the polished executive who'd tried to kill her months ago. "I'm not here to hurt anyone," Adrian said quickly, his hands raised. "I just need to talk." "You're supposed to be in prison," Daniel said, positioning himself between Adrian and his family. "Early release, good behavior, and overcrowding." Adrian's laugh was bitter. "Turns out attempted murder by allergen doesn't carry the same weight as shooting someone, plus my lawyer was very good." "What do you want?" Cassandra asked, adjusting Lily's weight in her arms. The little girl stirred but didn't wake. "To warn you, Vincent Slade, he's not done. Prison didn't stop him from planning. He's been corresponding with someone on the outside, someone close to you. I overheard things being in the same facility." Daniel pulled out his phone ready to call the police, but Adrian held up a hand. "Wait, just hear me out. I know I have no right to ask for anything, but this is bigger than our history." "You tried to kill me," Cassandra said flatly. "I know, and I'll carry that guilt forever. But right now, someone else is planning something worse. Vincent's correspondent, they're not after you. They're after her." He pointed at Lily. The words hit like ice water. Daniel's expression turned deadly. "If you're lying." "I'm not. Think about it. What would hurt you both more than anything? What would destroy the life you've built? They know you can handle threats to yourselves, but a child—" Cassandra's mind raced. Who's helping Vincent? "I don't know. He was careful, used codes, but I heard him mention the butterfly room, said it would be poetic justice, whatever that means." The butterfly room. The child care center at Drake Industries, covered in Lily's artwork, where Lily spent her days while Daniel and Cassandra worked. "When?" Daniel demanded. "Soon. Maybe tomorrow. There's some kind of event." Tomorrow was the child care center's first anniversary celebration. All the children would be there along with their parents, board members, media. If someone wanted to make a statement to cause maximum damage, it would be the perfect opportunity. "Why warn us?" Cassandra asked, studying Adrian's face. "What's in it for you?" Adrian's shoulders sagged. "Redemption, maybe? Or just the hope that doing one right thing might balance out some of the wrong. I lost everything because of my choices. My career, my freedom, my family. My daughter won't even speak to me. She's about Lily's age, and when I heard Vincent's plan, all I could think about was how I'd feel if someone targeted her." Daniel and Cassandra exchanged glances. It could be a trap, another layer of deception. But the raw pain in Adrian's voice seemed genuine. "If you're lying," Daniel said slowly, "if this is another manipulation—" "It's not. I'll go to the police myself, tell them everything I know. I just wanted to warn you first, give you time to prepare." Adrian turned to leave, then paused. "For what it's worth, the company is better now. What you've built from the ashes of the old Drake Industries, it's what it should have been all along." He disappeared into the night, leaving them standing in their driveway with Lily still sleeping between them. Daniel immediately called Marcus, initiating security protocols, while Cassandra carried Lily inside. checking every room to ensure Adrian had been alone. Within an hour, their house had become a command center. Marcus arrived with his team, Professor Chen connected via secure video link, and Michael came to help analyze the threat. They worked through the night reviewing security footage, employee records, and visitor logs for the childcare center. "There," Michael said suddenly, pointing at a screen showing the previous week's footage. "That maintenance worker. She's not on our regular staff." The woman on the screen was unremarkable, middle-aged brown hair, the kind of person who could blend into any crowd. But there was something familiar about her posture, the way she moved. "Enhance her face," Cassandra ordered. When the image cleared, Cassandra gasped. "That's Dr. Elizabeth Trent. She's supposed to be in federal prison." "She was released 2 days ago," Marcus reported, checking his sources. "Compassionate release for a terminal illness, pancreatic cancer, supposedly." Supposedly. "The documentation looks legitimate, but we both know documents can be forged." Daniel studied the footage. "She's not moving like someone with terminal cancer. Look at her posture, her gait. She's healthy." "A fake diagnosis to get early release," Cassandra concluded. "Vincent must have arranged it, but how would she access the childcare center?" "She's using stolen credentials," Michael discovered. "The real maintenance worker, Maria Santos, reported her ID missing last week. She thought she'd just misplaced it." Lily woke up then, rubbing her eyes and looking around at the assembled adults. "Why is everyone here? Is it a party?" Daniel scooped her up, holding her close. "Just a work meeting, sweetheart. Want to go back to bed?" "Can I stay? I promise I'll be quiet." She looked at Cassandra with those earnest brown eyes. "Please, Aunt Cass." Against her better judgment, Cassandra nodded. "But you have to stay with Daddy, okay?" As Lily settled in Daniel's lap with her coloring book, the team continued their investigation. By dawn, they'd identified 3 more instances of Dr. Trent accessing the building, always during shift changes when security was transitioning. "She's studying patterns," Daniel observed, "learning routines, classic reconnaissance." "But what's her plan?" Cassandra wondered. "She can't use poison again. We test everything now. Security's been tripled. What are we missing?" Lily looked up from her coloring. "Maybe she wants to take something instead of leave something." The adults turned to stare at the child, who shrugged and went back to her butterflies. But her innocent observation had triggered something in Cassandra's mind. "The children," she breathed. "She's not planning to hurt them at the event. She's planning to take them. Or one of them." "Kidnapping." Marcus frowned. "That's a huge escalation." "But think about it." Cassandra continued, her mind racing. "Tomorrow's event will have controlled chaos, parents, children, media, all mingling. In the confusion, a child could go missing for several minutes before anyone noticed. By then, she could be gone." "She's after Lily," Daniel said with cold certainty. "Adrian said they wanted to hurt us through her." "Then Lily doesn't go to the event," Cassandra decided immediately. "But I have to go," Lily protested. "I'm doing the butterfly dance with my friends. We've been practicing for weeks." Daniel hugged her tighter. "Sometimes we have to miss things to stay safe, sweetheart." Lily's lower lip trembled, but she nodded bravely. "Okay, if it keeps everyone safe." Cassandra felt her heart break a little. This 7-year-old child had already lost so much, and now fear was stealing more from her. "Wait," she said suddenly. "What if we use this? If we know what they're planning, we can control it." "Absolutely not," Daniel said immediately. "We're not using our daughter as bait." "Not as bait. But think about it. If Lily doesn't show up, they'll know we're on to them. They'll postpone, regroup, try again when we're not ready. But if we proceed normally with preparations..." Marcus nodded slowly. "We could catch them in the act. End this once and for all." "It's too dangerous," Daniel insisted. "Daddy," Lily said quietly, "the butterflies." Everyone looked at her confused. She pulled out one of her drawings, a butterfly surrounded by a net, but the butterfly was glowing and the net was burning away. "Sometimes being caught is how you show you're too strong to hold," she explained with the profound simplicity only children possessed. Daniel looked at his daughter, then at Cassandra, torn between protecting his child and teaching her to be brave. "If we do this," he said finally, "we do it my way. Military precision. No room for error." The next 18 hours were a blur of preparation. Every entrance to the childcare center was monitored. Undercover security was tripled. Parents were quietly briefed to be vigilant without causing panic. Marcus positioned snipers on adjacent buildings while plainclothes officers mingled with the crowd. Dr. Trent was spotted entering the building at noon using her stolen credentials. They let her in, tracking her every move through hidden cameras Michael had installed overnight. She moved through the center with the confidence of someone who'd rehearsed their plan thoroughly, finally positioning herself near the emergency exit in the butterfly room. She's waiting for the performance, Daniel observed from the security center they'd set up in an adjacent room. Maximum distraction. Cassandra stood beside him, watching Lily on another monitor. The little girl was with her friends, all wearing butterfly wings for their dance, looking excited despite the danger she knew lurked nearby. Daniel had wanted to put her in a bulletproof vest, but Cassandra had pointed out it would tip off Dr. Trent. Instead, Lily wore a tracking device disguised as a butterfly pin, and Daniel's best security operative, dressed as a parent, stayed within arm's reach at all times. "Ladies and gentlemen," the announcement came over the speaker, "please gather in the butterfly room for our special performance." This was it. Parents and children crowded into the space decorated with hundreds of Lily's butterfly paintings. Media representatives positioned themselves for the best angles. Board members mingled with employees, everyone celebrating the success of the childcare program that had become a model for corporate responsibility. The music began, and 12 children, including Lily, began their butterfly dance. It was beautiful and innocent, their handmade wings catching the light as they moved through the choreography they'd practiced so diligently. Parents smiled and recorded on their phones the moment everything had appeared to be on the surface. Dr. Trent made her move when the dance reached its crescendo, all eyes on the children as they formed a butterfly shape together. She slipped through the crowd toward Lily, a chloroform-soaked cloth hidden in her sleeve. But Daniel was faster. He'd positioned himself perfectly using surveillance and his military training to predict her approach. As her hand reached for Lily, he intercepted, grabbing her wrist and twisting it behind her back in one smooth motion. The cloth fell harmlessly to the floor. "Nobody move!" Dr. Trent hissed, and that's when they saw the device in her other hand, a dead man's switch connected to something under her coat. The room froze. Parents instinctively pulled their children closer. The butterfly dance stopped mid-motion, the children confused but sensing danger. "Everyone stay calm," Cassandra said, stepping forward with the authority that had commanded boardrooms and now commanded a hostage situation. "Dr. Trent, what do you want?" "Justice," the woman spat. "You destroyed everything, my career, my life, my reputation. I spent my whole life building my pharmaceutical company, and you tore it down in a single day." "You tried to murder me," Cassandra reminded her. "You provided the poison that could have killed dozens of people with allergies." "It was supposed to be clean, just you." Adrian promised it would be simple. But then that janitor, she glared at Daniel, who still held her wrist. "Everything fell apart because of him." "Let the children go," Daniel said calmly. "This is between us." "No, Vincent was right. The only way to truly hurt people like you is through what you love." Her gaze fixed on Lily, who stood frozen among her friends, butterfly wings trembling. "She represents everything you stole from me, the future, the family, the legacy." "I'm sorry," Lily said suddenly, her small voice cutting through the tension. Everyone stared at the child, who stepped forward despite Daniel's sharp intake of breath. "I'm sorry you're sad, but hurting people won't make you happy again. My mommy died, and I was really sad, but Daddy taught me that making other people sad wouldn't bring her back." Dr. Trent's composure cracked slightly. "You don't understand, child. The world took everything from me." "The world took my mommy," Lily replied simply. "But it gave me Aunt Cass and a bigger family. Maybe if you stop being angry, the world will give you something new too." For a moment the room held its breath. Dr. Trent's hand trembled on the dead man's switch. Then from behind her another voice spoke. "Elizabeth, please." Everyone turned to see Vincent Slade in the doorway, flanked by FBI agents. He looked older than he had months ago, prison having aged him beyond his years, but his eyes were clear, focused on Dr. Trent with something like compassion. "Vincent." She looked confused. "You're supposed to be." "In prison I am. I made a deal to testify against you in exchange for this moment, to stop you from making the same mistake I did." He stepped closer, hands visible and empty. "Elizabeth, I spent 15 years planning revenge, and it cost me everything. My daughter died thinking I was a monster. Don't let that be your legacy, too." "But they destroyed us," Dr. Trent said, tears streaming down her face. "No," Vincent said gently. "We destroyed ourselves the moment we chose revenge over redemption. That little girl is right. Hurting others won't heal our pain. It just spreads it." The room watched as two broken people faced the consequences of their choices. Dr. Trent looked at the children around her, all watching with wide, frightened eyes. She looked at Lily, still standing there in her butterfly wings, offering forgiveness she didn't deserve. Slowly, carefully, Dr. Trent lifted her thumb from the dead man's switch. Nothing happened. "There was no bomb," she whispered, collapsing to her knees. "I couldn't. I'm a doctor. I swore to do no harm. I couldn't actually." The FBI agents moved in quickly, but gently, taking her into custody, while parents grabbed their children and the media captured everything. In the chaos, Lily ran to Daniel, who dropped to his knees and caught her, holding her so tightly she squeaked. "You were so brave," he whispered into her hair. "Too brave. You scared me." "I wasn't scared," Lily said. "I knew you and Aunt Cass would protect me, and I felt Mommy with me telling me what to say." Cassandra joined them, wrapping her arms around both of them, and for a moment they were just a family embracing while chaos swirled around them. Later, after the FBI had taken statements and the media had been managed, they sat in Cassandra's office. Lily was asleep on the couch, exhausted from being a hero. Daniel and Cassandra sat together, processing what had happened. "She could have been killed," Daniel said quietly. "Our daughter could have." "But she wasn't," Cassandra interrupted. "Because we protected her, together, and because she's extraordinary, just like her father." "She gets that from Sarah," Daniel said, automatically, then paused. "And from you. The way she stood up to Dr. Trent, that courage that was you." "That was all three of us," Cassandra corrected. "Sarah's compassion, your bravery, and maybe a little of my stubbornness." A knock on the door interrupted them. Marcus entered with an envelope. "This just arrived by courier. It's from Vincent Slade." Cassandra opened it carefully. Inside was a handwritten letter and a check for $50 million. "Dear Miss Drake," she read aloud, "this money represents everything I gained from my years of planning revenge. I'm returning it to Drake Industries with one request: use it to expand the childcare program to other companies, other cities. Let Lily's butterflies spread their wings wider. Today, I watched a 7-year-old girl show more wisdom than I've managed in 70 years. She was right, holding on to anger only spreads pain. I'll spend my remaining years in prison, but perhaps some good can come from my mistakes. Tell Mr. Merrick he's raising an exceptional child. Tell him also that love, real love, the kind that makes you better rather than bitter, is worth more than any revenge. I'm told my daughter loved butterflies too. Perhaps that's not a coincidence. Vincent Slade." The room was quiet for a moment, then Lily stirred on the couch. "Did someone say butterflies?" she asked sleepily. "Yes, sweetheart," Daniel said, moving to sit beside her. "Mr. Slade wants to help spread your butterflies everywhere." "Good," Lily said with satisfaction. "Everyone needs butterflies. They remind us that beautiful things can come from dark places." Over the following months, the Butterfly Foundation was established with Vincent's money, creating childcare centers across the country. Each one was decorated with reproductions of Lily's artwork, spreading her message of transformation and hope. Dr. Elizabeth Trent received psychiatric treatment as part of her sentence, eventually becoming an advocate for mental health support in the corporate world. She sent Lily a letter of apology, which the little girl insisted on answering with a drawing of a butterfly emerging from a storm. Adrian Cross, his warning having proved genuine, was given a job at a nonprofit focused on corporate ethics reform. He worked under an assumed name, slowly rebuilding a life based on service rather than ambition. The night of what became known as the Butterfly Incident, Daniel and Cassandra lay in bed, Lily asleep between them. She'd had nightmares and sought comfort in their presence. "Do you think it's over?" Daniel asked. "The threats, the conspiracies?" That chapter is, Cassandra said. But there will be other challenges. Running Drake Industries ethically means making enemies of those who profit from corruption. Then we'll face them together, Daniel said simply. All three of us, Lily murmured, apparently not as asleep as they'd thought. Like butterflies in formation, we're stronger together. She was right, of course. The little girl who'd lost her mother but refused to lose hope had become the heart of an unlikely family and the symbol of a corporate transformation. Her butterflies adorned boardrooms and break rooms alike, reminding everyone that change was possible, that beauty could emerge from darkness, that sometimes the most important voices came from the most unexpected places. A year passed. The Butterfly Foundation opened its 10th center. Drake Industries was featured on the cover of Fortune magazine as the company that chose soul over stock prices, though their stock was actually at an all-time high. Daniel had been promoted to Chief Security Officer, a position created specifically to recognize his unique ability to see threats others missed. But the most important development happened on a quiet Sunday morning in their backyard. Lily was chasing actual butterflies with her new little brother Thomas. The adoption had been finalized just a month ago. The 4-year-old boy, who'd been in the foster system since birth, had taken to his new family with the resilience children possess when given love and stability. "Careful, Tommy," Lily called as he toddled after a monarch butterfly. "Don't hurt it." "I won't," he promised, his chubby hands reaching skyward. "Just want to see." Daniel and Cassandra watched from the porch, coffee cups in hand, the picture of domestic contentment that would have seemed impossible 2 years ago. "The board wants me to consider expanding internationally," Cassandra said, "but it would mean travel time away from home." "What do you want?" Daniel asked. "I want this," she said, gesturing to their children playing in the sunshine. "I spent so many years thinking success meant isolation, that power required loneliness. Now I know better." "You can have both," Daniel pointed out. "The company and the family. We'll make it work." "How do you always make everything sound so simple?" "Because it is simple. We love each other. We protect each other. Everything else is just details." Thomas had managed to coax a butterfly onto his finger and was staring at it in wonder. Lily stood beside him, explaining in her serious 7-year-old way about metamorphosis and transformation. "She's going to be a teacher," Cassandra observed, "just like Sarah. Or an artist, or a CEO, or all three." Daniel smiled. "She's got options now, thanks to you." "Thanks to us," Cassandra corrected. The butterfly left Thomas's finger spiraling upward into the morning sky. Both children watched it go, then ran off to find another adventure. Their laughter filled the yard, mixing with the sound of wind chimes Sarah had once hung that they'd brought from the old apartment. "I have something to tell you," Cassandra said suddenly. "I wasn't sure when to mention it, but—" "You're pregnant," Daniel said simply. She stared at him. "How did you—" "I notice things remember the morning sickness. You've been hiding the way you've been unconsciously protective of your stomach, the prenatal vitamins you tried to hide behind the coffee maker. Nothing gets past you, does it? Not when it comes to my family." He pulled her closer. "How do you feel about it?" "Terrified," she admitted. "Excited. Overwhelmed. Happy. I never thought I'd have children of my own, and now you'll have 3, Daniel finished. Lily, Thomas, and whoever this little one turns out to be." "Your Marine salary never covered 3 kids, Cassandra teased. "Good thing I married a CEO then." They laughed, the sound joining their children's giggles in the morning air. The journey from that night at the gala, when a janitor's desperate shout had saved a CEO's life, to this moment of perfect ordinariness, had been filled with danger, betrayal, and pain. But it had also been filled with unexpected love-chosen family and the kind of transformation Lily's butterflies represented. "Daniel," Cassandra said softly, "what would have happened if you hadn't noticed the acacia that night?" "I would have lost you before I ever really found you," he said simply. "And Lily would have grown up without the mother she was meant to have, even if it wasn't the one she was born to." "You really believe that we were meant to find each other?" Daniel watched their children playing, thought about Sarah and how she'd always insisted he'd find love again, thought about the impossible chain of events that had brought them together. I believe that sometimes the worst things that happen to us clear the path for the best things. Sarah's death led me to that janitor job. Your father's legacy led you to that gala. Adrian's assassination attempt led us to each other. It's not fate exactly, but maybe it's something like grace. Grace, Cassandra repeated, tasting the word. I like that. Thomas ran over, tugging on Cassandra's dress. Mama Cass, Lily says butterflies taste with their feet. Is that true? The title Mama Cass still made her heart squeeze. It is true. Butterflies are full of surprises. Like our family, Thomas declared with 4-year-old certainty, then ran back to his sister. He's right, Daniel said. We're definitely full of surprises. As if to underscore the point, Cassandra's phone rang. It was Marcus. Sorry to interrupt your Sunday, but we've got a situation. A whistleblower from Hartman Industries wants to meet with you. Says they have information about toxic waste dumping that affects thousands of families. Cassandra looked at Daniel, who nodded. This was their life now, balancing corporate justice with family time-saving companies while raising children. Set up the meeting for tomorrow, she told Marcus, and have the environmental team ready. She hung up and found Daniel smiling at her. What? Just thinking about how 2 years ago you would have gone to the office right now. But you're choosing to stay here with us. Priorities, she said simply. The company is important, but it's not everything. Not anymore. Lily and Thomas had discovered a caterpillar on the rose bush and were excitedly discussing its future transformation. Their enthusiasm was infectious, reminding the adults that every ending was also a beginning, every loss could lead to unexpected gain. Should we tell them? Daniel asked, his hand finding Cassandra's still flat stomach. About the baby. Tonight at dinner, Lily's been asking for a sister. What if it's another boy? Then she'll teach him about butterflies and transformation just like she did with Thomas. The sun climbed higher, warming the yard where their children played. Inside the house held photographs of both families, Sarah and Daniel's wedding. Cassandra, with her grandmother, Lily's first art show, Thomas's adoption day. The past and present woven together, creating something new and beautiful. Daniel's phone buzzed with a security alert from Drake Industries, but he silenced it. Whatever it was could wait an hour. Right now, his daughter was teaching his son about metamorphosis. His wife was carrying their child, and the morning was perfect in its imperfection. You know what I just realized? Cassandra said. It's been exactly 2 years since the gala. Daniel checked his phone's calendar. She was right. 2 years since he'd shouted across a ballroom, since she'd fired him for saving her life, since everything had changed. Should we celebrate? He asked. We are, she said, gesturing to their life, their children, their transformed world. Every day now is a celebration of what we've built from that night. Lily ran over, her face bright with excitement. Daddy, Mama Cass, the caterpillar is making a cocoon. Can we watch it every day until it becomes a butterfly? Of course, Daniel said, lifting her onto his shoulders. We'll document the whole transformation. Like our family's transformation, Lily said happily. From sad to happy, from broken to whole, from alone to together. Thomas climbed into Cassandra's lap, snuggling against her with the trust of a child who'd learned that arms that held him wouldn't let go. Will the butterfly remember being a caterpillar? He asked. I don't know, Cassandra admitted. What do you think? I think it remembers the important parts, Thomas decided. Like how it felt to change. As the family sat together in their backyard watching a caterpillar begin its journey toward wings, they embodied the very transformation Lily's butterflies represented. A CEO who'd learned that power meant nothing without love. A janitor who'd discovered that seeing clearly included recognizing his own worth. A little girl who'd lost her mother but gained a family. A little boy who'd found his forever home. And soon a new life that would be born into a world where butterflies decorated corporate boardrooms and reminded everyone that beautiful things could emerge from the darkest places. The caterpillar continued its work, oblivious to its audience, following an ancient pattern of death and rebirth that somehow seemed less like an ending and more like a beginning. Just like their story, which had started with an ending, a shout across a ballroom, a job lost, a life saved, and became a beginning. A family found, a company transformed, a future bright with possibility. I love you all, Cassandra said, suddenly the words coming easier now than they ever had before. We love you too, Daniel said, speaking for all of them. Lily leaned down from his shoulders to kiss Cassandra's head. Thomas squeezed her tighter, and somewhere perhaps Sarah watched her family, the one she'd left, and the one that had formed in her absence with joy rather than sorrow, knowing that love like butterflies could transform and transcend even death itself. The morning stretched ahead of them full of ordinary miracles and extraordinary grace. That evening, as promised, they gathered around the dinner table that had become the heart of their home. The caterpillar in its newly formed chrysalis sat in a jar on the windowsill, a silent witness to their continuing transformation. We have something to tell you, Cassandra began, reaching for Daniel's hand. Lily and Thomas looked up from their plates, eyes bright with curiosity. Are we getting a dog? Thomas asked hopefully. Better. Daniel said, his smile giving away the secret before the words could form. A baby, Lily squealed, jumping up from her chair. You're having a baby. Cassandra nodded, tears she hadn't expected blurring her vision. In about 6 months. You're going to be a big sister again, Lily, and Thomas, you'll be a big brother. Thomas's face scrunched in concentration. But I'm little. Not for long, Lily assured him, already embracing her role. I'll teach you everything just like I taught you about butterflies. The children peppered them with questions. Would it be a boy or girl? What would they name it? Could they help decorate the nursery? Through it all, Daniel watched his family with a contentment that would have seemed impossible in those dark days after Sarah's death. Later, after the children were asleep, he found Cassandra in what would become the nursery, holding one of Lily's earliest butterfly paintings. I want to put this here, she said. The first thing our baby sees should be transformation. Sarah would have loved this, Daniel said quietly. All of it. You giving Lily the mother she needed, us building this family the way her death led to so much life. Do you think she knows? Cassandra asked. Wherever she is, do you think she can see what her sacrifice led to? Daniel wrapped his arms around her from behind his hands resting on the slight swell of her stomach. I think love like Sarah's doesn't just disappear. It transforms like butterflies. Cassandra finished, leaning back against him. 5 years had passed since that night at the gala. The caterpillar had long since become a butterfly and flown away. Thomas was 9 now, confident and curious, following Lily's lead in everything. Lily, 12 and wise beyond her years, had started teaching art classes at the butterfly centers, passing on her mother's legacy and Cassandra's strength to other children who'd known loss. The baby Cassandra had carried became twins Sarah and Charles, named for the grandmother who'd loved butterflies, and the grandfather who'd finally, through his daughter's courage, found redemption. They were 3 now, chaos and joy, in equal measure, their laughter filling the spaces that had once held only silence. Drake Industries had become the standard for ethical corporate practice. The boy who'd once cleaned their offices at night had become the man who protected not just the company, but the principles it stood for. The woman who'd built walls had torn them down, creating spaces where janitors and CEOs shared the same elevators, the same dreams, the same opportunities for transformation. On this particular morning, another anniversary of the night, everything changed. Daniel stood in the butterfly room of the original childcare center. The walls were covered with hundreds of paintings now, not just Lily's, but from children across the country who'd been touched by the Butterfly Foundation. You saved more than just my life that night, Cassandra said, joining him. She was carrying Charles while Sarah toddled ahead, trying to catch dust motes in the morning sunlight. We saved each other, Daniel corrected, catching Sarah before she could bump into a table. That's what families do. Well, Lily and Thomas burst in both in their school uniforms, arguing about something that probably didn't matter but felt crucial to them. Mom, tell Thomas that butterflies can see ultraviolet, Lily demanded. Dad, tell Lily that not everything has to be about butterflies, Thomas countered. Before either parent could respond, a familiar figure appeared in the doorway. Vincent Slade, aged and frail, accompanied by a guard. He'd been given special permission to attend this anniversary celebration, his first time outside prison walls in 5 years. Mr. Slade, Lily said, recognizing him immediately. She walked over without hesitation, extending her hand. Thank you for the butterfly centers. They've helped so many families. Vincent's eyes filled with tears as he shook the young girl's hand. No, young lady. Thank you. You taught an old man that transformation is possible at any age. The ceremony that followed was simple but profound. Hundreds gathered employees, families, even former enemies who'd found redemption through the Drake Industries Second Chance program. Adrian Cross was there with his daughter who'd finally forgiven him and now played with Thomas. Dr. Trent, truly ill now, but at peace, sat in a wheelchair surrounded by the mental health advocates she'd inspired. Harrison Wade, nearly 90, but still sharp, gave a speech about courage and transformation. But it was Lily who stole the show, reading a poem she'd written about butterflies and families, and how sometimes the most beautiful things came from the most broken places. As the crowd dispersed, the Merrick Drake family found themselves alone in the butterfly room where it had all began. The twins played with blocks while Thomas helped them. Lily sat sketching the scene, already planning her next painting. No regrets, Daniel asked Cassandra, their old ritual. None, she replied as she always did. Then, breaking script, she added only gratitude. Daniel pulled out a small wrapped package. Happy anniversary. Inside was a golden butterfly pin identical to the tracking device Lily had worn during the Dr. Trent incident, but this one was purely decorative, purely symbolic. It's beautiful, Cassandra breathed, pinning it to her jacket. Daddy, look, Sarah called, pointing to the window. A monarch butterfly had landed on the glass wings spread against the morning sun. It's Mommy, Lily said softly, the way she always did when butterflies appeared at significant moments. Whether it was true or simply a comfort didn't matter. What mattered was the transformation they'd all undergone, the family they'd become, the lives they'd changed. Daniel gathered his family close, his daughter who'd taught them about resilience, his son who'd shown them second chances were possible, his twins who represented the future, and his wife who'd proven that even CEOs could transform. I love you all, he said, the words that had once been so hard now flowing like breath. We love you too, they chorused, even the twins babbling their version of the words. Outside, the butterfly lifted off the window and spiraled upward, joining others in a dance that looked choreographed but was simply nature following its course. Inside, a family that had been built from loss and found through courage continued their own transformation, proving daily that sometimes the most important things in life came from the most unexpected places. The janitor who'd seen everything. The CEO who'd been blind. The little girl who'd lost her mother but never lost hope. The family they'd become. The butterflies that reminded them all that beautiful things could emerge from the darkest cocoons. As they left the building together, Lily turned back one last time to look at the butterfly room. It all started here, she said. No, Cassandra corrected gently. It started with your father's courage and your mother's love. This room just happened to be where those things intersected with my life. And changed everything, Daniel added. They walked out into the sunlight where their car waited to take them home. Home to the house with the yard where butterflies danced. Home to dinner conversations and bedtime stories. Home to the life they'd built from the ashes of their separate griefs. Behind them, Drake Industries Tower stood tall, its windows reflecting the sky like 1,000 mirrors. But it was no longer a monument to one man's ambition. It had become something else entirely, a symbol that transformation was possible, that the smallest voices could carry the most important messages, that sometimes a janitor's shout across a crowded ballroom could echo through generations. The butterfly pin on Cassandra's jacket caught the light as she helped the twins into their car seats. Daniel secured Thomas's seatbelt while Lily sketched the scene in her ever-present notebook. An ordinary moment in an extraordinary story. As they drove away, a formation of butterflies crossed their path, heading south for the winter. The twins pointed and laughed. Thomas made up a story about where they were going. Lily drew them in flight. Daniel reached for Cassandra's hand. And in that moment, complete in its simple perfection, the transformation was complete. Not ended transformation never truly ends, but complete, in the way a chrysalis is complete when the butterfly emerges forever changed, ready to fly. The janitor who'd saved a life had found a family. The CEO who'd nearly died had learned to live. The children who'd lost had learned to love again. The butterflies painted and real continued their eternal dance of change. And somewhere perhaps Sarah smiled, knowing that her legacy lived on, not in grief, but in the joy of a family that had emerged from the cocoon of loss with wings strong enough to soar.